This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Give us a call, 208-991-4783, and become one of our friends over on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Well, this episode is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much, and I especially want to call out Michael Galea. Provided another great donation to the show. Thank you so much for all your support. Today's episode of Barrie Craig is called The Lonely Corner, from November 3rd of 1953.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Murderers must have a lot of trouble keeping their books balanced. For one thing, they can't always be sure when they're going to make their next killing. And for another, so many of their assets are buried.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. Being a confidential investigator can easily become an office job, if you've got an office, which I have, and you spend all your time in it, which I don't. Clients cross you up sometimes, though. Joey Carter made a stab in that direction on this particular day. I had a meal at Willie's Wagon, if you could call it a meal.
What would you call it, Mr. Craig?
Penance.
Big joke. Something wrong with the hamburger?
Well, it's been fatally wounded, Willie.
Huh.
Next time you might wait till it dies before serving it.
My customers should live so long.
Why, thank you, Willie.
I can remember a time when Private Dix could hardly read. They were all making witty remarks.
Sorry.
Have a cup of coffee?
Oh, I'm not that sorry.
There's nothing wrong with a coffee.
Well, there's nothing wrong with sulfuric acid either, but I'll hold on to my stomach lining for a while longer if you don't mind.
What's so special about your stomach lining?
It's attached to me.
Ah, you're getting sentimental. Which reminds me, there was a guy in here looking for you about an hour ago.
Oh?
Nervous little punk. I gave him your office address.
He must have missed me. An hour ago, I was on my way here.
Yeah?
What was he nervous about?
He didn't whisper nothing in my shell-like ears.
Then how'd you know he was nervous?
He couldn't keep his hand from trembling. The one that was holding the gun, I mean.
Willie had nothing more to offer except the coffee I'd already turned down, so I got out. After Willie explained that my prospective client hadn't exactly been waving his gun around. He'd just been clutching it in a side pocket. Jake, who'd given up a handful of stony acres in Vermont for an elevator cage in the building where I had my office, added a few, very few, well-chosen words.
Hi.
Hello, Jake. Nice day.
Yep.
How have things been on Madison Avenue today?
Dull.
No pretty girls?
I reckon there was.
Now, don't tell me you're getting old.
Busted my glasses.
Oh. Well, tomorrow will be another day.
Yeah.
But I'd like to get up to my office before then.
Oh, I keep forgetting. Going up?
Where else could I go from the ground floor?
I guess you're going up. Other fellow went up, too.
Which other fellow?
One looking for you.
Well, thanks for letting me in on it. Was he a small man?
Yeah.
Nervous?
Yep.
Said he'd wait for me in the office?
Yeah. Ain't come down either.
Which means he's still up there, unless he used the back stairs.
Yeah.
Did he mention why he wanted to see me?
No.
He was carrying a gun, wasn't he?
Oh, you heard about him.
From Willie. He tried to get a hold of me at the wagon, but...
Fella drink any of Willie's coffee?
I don't know.
You better hurry on to your office, because if that fella did...
Yeah?
He'll be needing major surgery.
You're exaggerating.
Well, I had some of that coffee when I first come to town, before I knew better.
You're still alive?
Yeah, but mighty feeble. You just hear something, Mr. Craig?
Your buzzer. Somebody's ringing for you downstairs.
What's the matter with them? Can't they walk up a few stairs?
They may never have used your elevator before.
You want again? Noisy fellas. Excuse me.
Not at all. Jake's elevator headed downstairs at considerably less than the speed of light. I headed for my office, in no particular hurry. I don't like small men with guns. Sometimes they get to thinking they need a gun as an equalizer. It might be psychological, but bullets never heard of Sigmund Freud. I didn't spot him when I first got into the office. It was late afternoon. The dying sunlight didn't quite make it to the corners of the room. It was in a corner that my client was waiting for me. A lonely corner, the loneliest of all. The corner where a man creeps to die.
The knife went in under the left shoulder blade and pierced the heart. He died maybe an hour ago. Death was not instantaneous. There's no identification on him. Labels on his clothes have been ripped off. Until further notice, he'll go on the books as John Doe, deceased.
Briefly and beautifully put, Lieutenant Rogers.
Let's not be formal, Barrie.
You, taking Junior with you?
Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll turn up something with his fingerprints.
The odds are good.
The gun he was carrying had its serial number filed off. Professional.
Yeah. Makes it funny, though.
Why?
His prints are on record. Whoever killed him must have known that. Why bother with stripping the body of identification?
Time, maybe.
I suppose.
He was trying to get in touch with you. Somebody was anxious about that.
I'd imagine so.
Somebody's anxiety killed John Doe.
Looks that way.
We'll find out who John Doe was sooner or later. Once we get that, we might be able to make a good guess about why he wanted to see you.
That's possible.
The boy with the knife wouldn't care for that. He might try using that knife again. Be careful, will you, Barrie?
It was good advice, but how can you be careful when you don't know what you've got to be careful about or whom? Tracing John Doe was taking time. Time in which the sun dived behind the high stone walls of the city and got lost. Time in which I got tired of sitting around in a darkened office and staring into a corner where nothing was anymore. So I got out. I buzzed the elevator quickly and settled down to wait. But the elevator started up fast. I didn't think much of it until it was close to my floor. Then I thought in a hurry. In all the years Jake had been piloting that elevator, he'd never responded that fast. I moved back, pulling at the gun in my pocket. I didn't make it by the time the elevator door opened, so I dived for the carpet. I made a mental note to speak to the management. That carpet hadn't been swept in months. The little stranger in the elevator hadn't waited to see if the bullets had found me. I thought maybe I could let him know if I got down the back stairs fast enough. Then I ran into Jake. At the foot of the stairs, slumped behind the door that led to them. Jake. Jake.
Yeah, if I remember correct.
Boy, you had me worried for a minute.
Aye.
Hi.
Head don't feel so good.
You were hit on it.
Maybe that's why I don't feel so good. Must have been hit by a piece of my farm up in Vermont.
A rocky piece.
That was the only kind there was.
Here.
Oh.
Here.
Thanks, Mr. Craig.
How is it?
It was better laying down. I figure I'll live, though.
Good.
Getting my glasses back tomorrow.
Oh. You mean you'll be able to see the girls on Madison Avenue again?
Yeah. Well, maybe we better get back to the lobby. Might be customers.
All right, but hold it where you are. Well, the lobby's empty. Come on.
You figured the fellow that hit me might still be around?
Possibly.
Too bad he ain't.
Not so bad. He was carrying a gun.
Oh?
Minus a few bullets now.
Fellow took the elevator up?
When I rang for it.
Oh, you got dust on your suit, Mr. Craig. Carpet upstairs?
Yeah.
Ought to be swept sometime.
You might take it up with the cleaning woman.
Yeah. When she gets over her lumbago.
The carpet hasn't been swept for years.
Well, Miss Abercrombie's had lumbago for years.
Jake, did you see the man who slugged you?
Not too good. My glasses, you see.
Yeah. Well, he's probably a half a dozen miles from here by now. So long, Jake.
Going out?
Sure.
Mr. Craig.
Yeah?
The fella that took them shots at you, he might be hanging around.
What for?
Another helping.
No, it was a professional job. Hit and run. If they don't make it the first time, they wait until they can arrange another setup.
Well, I hope you're right, Mr. Craig.
So, do I. My analysis was probably right. That didn't prevent me from holding my breath as I went through the lobby door. Then across the strip of pavement that separated me from my car and into it. I didn't waste any time getting underway. No gunfire. I decided I could start breathing again.
Mr. Craig?
I beg your pardon?
Oh, I'm the one who should...
Let's not quibble about who begs whose pardon. I'm just a little worried about whether this is my car.
It's your car.
I never noticed that it came equipped with a small blonde before.
Do you mind?
I was a normal red-blooded American boy, Miss...
My name is Doris. Doris Cheney.
How do you do? And do you spend much of your time parking in other people's cars?
Only when the other people are Barrie Craig.
Must be my new tie. The man who sold it to me said it would attract blondes like flies.
It's not a very nice comparison. Flies are pests.
Blondes can be, too. On the other hand... now that the gay chit-chat is over, well...
But I had to see you.
I've got an office.
Oh, I couldn't be seen going there.
You're shy?
I'm afraid.
And you figured staking out in my car you'd be safe.
Well, for a while anyway, and eventually you'd come out and get in the car.
And then we'd be together.
Yes.
Without witnesses.
Yes.
You're fumbling with your bag. Is there a gun in it?
No, there isn't. I'm nervous.
It's too early. We haven't come to the reasons for your being here yet.
We've come to the reasons.
My mistake.
The name of the man who was killed in your office today was William Cheney.
I concentrated on my driving. Concentrating on a small blonde is more fun, but is more likely to end up in a crash. She didn't add anything to the identification. I didn't figure she was finished yet, though. I gave her the cue. Relative?
My husband.
No relative.
We haven't been living together for some time.
He made noise when he ate soup?
He was a thief.
Oh, and that wore on your nerve.
Well, I hadn't known when I married him.
That happened.
You don't sound as if you believe me.
I don't have to believe you. You're not a client.
What?
Some reason or other, people never tell the truth to detectives if they can help it. Maybe they figure detectives should be smart enough to find out the truth for themselves. Sometimes detectives do.
But if I were a client?
I'd have to believe you. It's not on my license, but it's the way I play.
I want you to believe me, Mr. Craig.
It's $50 a day in expenses.
That's not too bad.
Depends on what you're buying. Suppose you hire me. What are you in the market for? An alibi, maybe?
Alibi? For what?
Your husband didn't die of old age.
Oh, you think I...
You could have. You knew where my office was. You knew he died there.
But...
Did you kill him?
No.
Okay. For now, we'll accept that as being true. The next thing is, what do you need a confidential investigator for?
I know who killed my husband.
She had a habit of throwing small bombshells as though she didn't know they were explosive. I sat that one out for a few seconds. It gave me time to wonder if the car that was trailing us intended to get any closer. It didn't. Not yet, anyway. You know who killed William Cheney?
Yes.
The district attorney will love you with a great love if you drop in and tell him.
I can't.
You don't care for the legal profession?
I don't have any proof.
That's a discouraging detail.
But I know it has to be...
Has to be who?
You've been staring up into the rearview mirror all the time. Why?
Car's been following us ever since we left my office. Who does it have to be?
Car? Then someone...
So far as we know, no one saw anything but me getting into my car and driving away. Who killed your husband?
They must have noticed
It's night. They've not been close enough to make any identifications. Maybe not even to spot the fact I've got a passenger. Why are you holding out on me?
I'm not, only...
The headlights are getting bigger. We're going to have company pretty soon. Look, Mrs. Cheney, it's corny. Somebody with something important to tell is stalling about it until it's too late.
You mean until they get killed?
Yeah. And by then, the something important isn't important anymore. At least not to the one who dies.
John Hurley.
John Hurley.
My husband worked for him.
And since your husband's profession was a thief, you mean he stole for him?
Yes.
That's background. Now hand me motive.
My husband stole something. Hurley thought he was going to double-cross him, not turn it over to him.
Was he?
I don't know. I haven't seen Bill for months, since we separated.
You make the marriage sound like ancient history. Your news is fresh, though.
Well, Bill's phoned me lots of times, begged me to take him back. But...
What was it he was holding out?
Well, I'm not sure. Jewels, I think.
Uh-huh. Slide off the seat and get on the floor.
What?
Do as I say.
All right. What's wrong?
Car trailing us is getting too close. I've been shot at once today. It could happen again. I don't want you in the line of fire.
But they might not miss again.
I know. That's why I'm going to dedicate a fender or two to self-preservation. Grab onto something, we're going to have a small collision. For what happened immediately after I'd cut my car in front of the one coming up behind, you'll have to consult somebody else. Obviously, both cars spun, slid across the street, and wound up attacking a lamppost. I was among those present, sure, but I wasn't sitting up and taking notice. I was lying down and being unconscious. Oh.
Barrie.
Oh. For a little while, I thought maybe my sins had been overlooked and I was in a better place. But what would the voice of Lieutenant Rogers be doing in a better place?
I guess you're alive.
Thanks. Oh, ouch.
I could have told you this was no time to brush your hair back.
It's my older brother who has two heads. Maybe I'm my older brother.
That lump you're fondling isn't another head.
Oh. Crab.
Yeah?
News.
You and another car had a collision with each other and a lamppost.
That I remember, partially anyway. Except the collision was intentional.
Oh?
I'll explain later. You keep going.
Well, a crowd collected immediately, but despite that, or maybe because of that, whoever was in the other car disappeared.
Too bad. However, that crowd probably saved my skin. The car was trailing mine, Trav. Outran me. I figured it would probably outgun me, too, so I had an accident.
For a man with a thick skull, that was probably the brightest thing to do.
Thank you, Lieutenant. I don't feel very much like making sudden movements with my head. That's why I haven't looked around, but, Trav, does there happen to be a small blonde on the premises?
I've looked around. Not even a big blonde.
Uh-huh. Means the crowd gave her an opportunity to duck out, too. Trav.
Yes?
Hasn't the police department got a couple of other lieutenants they occasionally use?
I was phoning your place when you left. I got Jake.
Oh. And the news from Vermont was?
You'd left. With another car on your trail.
So you sent out an alarm?
Yep.
Thanks. What were you phoning me about?
The identity of the corpse in your office.
William Cheney?
Yes, Hey, wait a minute. How did you know who he was?
The small blonde.
She must have been a very knowledgeable small blonde.
Maybe. She'd also been married to William Cheney.
And wanted you to do what?
Find his killer. Trav, what's the department got on Cheney?
Thief of sundry and movable items, notably jewels.
Big job recently?
Suspected the Horsham deal.
Well.
Not much so far as quantity goes. One medium-sized necklace. Only it happens to be worth around $100,000.
Give me quality over quantity any time. Which is what Cheney and his boss must have figured. Which is also what Cheney figured.
Now you've lost me.
Cheney was holding out on the necklace, I'll bet.
I was on my way to Cheney's house when you interrupted. Would you like to come along?
Very much. If I can arrange to have my head brought with me. But I was pleasantly surprised. My head stayed with me. We got to Cheney's place. Cheney, understandably enough, wasn't home. Neither was the necklace. We made sure of that.
Well, wherever he hid it, it wasn't here.
No.
Funny thing. You can see his wife left him. Not a dress in the place or a pair of women's shoes, but he's kept her furniture around.
Yeah. He wanted her to come back. I guess he didn't disturb anything.
No. Her cosmetics all over the place. Perfume stuff.
Yeah. Nice perfume. Hey.
What?
Newspaper.
So I see. What was the idea of fishing it out from under all the used face tissues?
Front page article it's folded to.
Paper's 3 days old. Horsham story broke 3 days ago.
Which means Cheney was on the run for 3 days before they got to him in my office.
Maybe he had the necklace on him?
Then they'd have lost interest in me. But they didn't.
No. Then the necklace is still among the missing. So far as Horsham, who owns it, is concerned, and so far as, who else?
So far as John Hurley is concerned, I think.
The small blonde gave you Hurley's name?
Yeah.
It might be a lead.
Why not try it?
John Hurley's been a bad boy for some time now. The department's got lots of warrants out for him. Trouble's been, nobody's found him to serve them on him.
He must be around.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
Not half as sure as I am. I'm the one he's been spraying bullets at.
We can always issue another warrant.
I don't doubt it. The only thing is, I'd like to be around when it happens. Around and alive. That, for the time being, was that. Trav returned to wherever lieutenants of police return in the middle of the night, and I got some work done. Not finding Hurley. No private detective can come even close to the police when it comes to tracing people. The thing is, I didn't waste time looking for Hurley. I concentrated on a small blonde. According to what your fleet dispatcher tells me, you guys work the cab stand here nights.
That's right, Bud.
3 of you. The one I want is the one that knows a guy named Cheney. The address is 2906.
Larchmont, apartment 3B.
You're the man I want. You generally take his calls?
Yep.
You other guys, $5 apiece make you happy?
Sure, okay.
Okay. Now, this Cheney was married, wasn't he?
You digging up stuff for a divorce case?
No. Matter of fact, you won't be called upon to testify to anything. You know what his wife looks like?
Yeah. Blonde, small.
Fine. Now, maybe she did this during the daytime. If she did, I'm sunk. But I've got a feeling the nighttime is the time a gal generally moves out. Some time ago, she left Larchmont with suitcases, but no husband.
You're not guessing.
Not anymore. She used your cab?
Yeah.
Where'd you take her?
The other guys rated 5 apiece.
You rate 25.
Thanks. 3912 East 67.
Thanks. Maybe I just wanted to see a small blonde again. It's one of the pleasanter things that happens to a private detective. But that wasn't the way I saw it, which could be why I didn't feel pleasant when I got to Doris Cheney's place.
Who is it?
Barrie Craig.
I can't.
Mrs. Cheney.
Oh, all right. Come in.
Thanks.
Hello, Craig.
Hello. You'd be Hurley, wouldn't you?
Not only would be, Craig, and
Speak softly and carry a big gun.
you've got a gift, Craig. Gift of expression. I couldn't have thought of that in a year.
Maybe you never tried. Now I've seen the gun, you can put it away.
You're too broad across the shoulders, Craig. You wouldn't have much trouble handling me. If I didn't wave the gun around, so to speak.
I don't anticipate much trouble anyway.
Yeah, me. Don't tell me you're one of those unbelievable characters who isn't afraid of a gun.
Of course I'm afraid of a gun.
Well, then,
I can't see any reason for you to use it on me, that's all.
let's hope so, however skeptical we are.
Hope I didn't damage your car too badly.
Doesn't matter. It wasn't mine to start with.
Doris.
You were unconscious, Barry. I saw Hurley get out of his car. I ran. I had to.
Sure. How long's Hurley been here?
Oh, just a couple of minutes.
In that case, he hasn't found the necklace yet, has he?
Craig, now I'm really surprised. Fancy her admitting that. Or was it a slip of the tongue?
Pretty obvious, isn't it?
Maybe. But it takes a rare man to recognize the obvious. Congratulations, Craig. Now, if you don't mind, Doris, my dear.
I don't have the necklace.
Hey, you see, Craig? She won't admit the obvious.
Maybe she's frightened. Hurley, if she turns the necklace over to you, what then?
You mean will I be nasty? Kill people? Why should I? Police are after me anyway.
All right. The necklace is in her bag.
Barry.
Bag? Ah, here it is.
She kept plucking at it when she came to consult me. I thought there might be a gun in it, but...
Not a gun at all. The necklace?
Yeah.
Well, Craig, you were quite right. There's no need for me to bother you at all. Oh.
Please, drop your gun, Mr. Hurley. I'm terribly nervous. I might...
I dropped it. Comes of having eyes for only the mercenary. And I should have kept them on you.
Please, Barry, call the police.
Yeah. No question about Hurley's being the man who trailed us in that car. Man responsible for the jewel robbery. The phone? Oh, yeah.
Not to mention murdering my husband.
Let's not mention it.
What?
Because he didn't. Sorry. Telephone wires do get tangled around people's arms, don't they? I'll take the gun.
Neatly done. Sorry I can't stay to admire...
You're staying. We're all staying till the police come. And then a thief will go to jail and a murderess...
No.
...to her punishment.
Some of it I've got, Barry.
Fine, Trev.
Whoever killed Cheney took the necklace. But Hurley was still after it, so...
He didn't kill Cheney. More than that, Trev, if Hurley had the necklace, why would he have bothered keeping after me?
Well, but Doris did.
Doris had to. She had to find out if Cheney had told me about her part in the deal. Hurley wouldn't have cared.
Oh, that's true enough. So Hurley hung around, socking Jake on the head. It was Doris in the elevator, wasn't it?
Yeah, she missed. Jake was knocked out. All she did was walk out the front door and wait in my car.
Fits together nicely. I'd like something a little more dramatic, though.
Oh, I can supply that, too. Doris told me she'd left her husband months ago. Hadn't had any contact with him except over the phone.
Well, he could have told her about the robbery over the phone, so that didn't prove anything.
But when we were in Cheney's apartment, we found a newspaper under used facial tissue. Used by a woman, naturally.
Hey, that's right. And the paper was 3 days old.
3 days old, which meant Doris hadn't split up with Cheney till after the robbery, which meant she lied. Which means a 3 days old newspaper is going to hang her.
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, The Lonely Corner, was written by Lou Vittis. Next week, it's the strange story titled The Killing Pace, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, 3 wise men brain each other, and a lady doll goes to the dogs when a champion greyhound makes a record-breaking sprint into the hereafter. Good night, folks. See you next week.
The National Broadcasting Company has brought you William Gargan, starring as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Featured in the role of Jake was Parker Fennelly. This is Don Pardo speaking. Mark Twain used to say, everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. We might add, everybody talks about the bad conditions in our schools, but nobody does anything about it. But no, that wouldn't be quite fair. Today, good citizens all over the country are working to improve our schools. It's true that in many communities, schools are outmoded, run down, and overcrowded. But in most of those communities, intelligent, responsible citizens are joining together to improve conditions. If you'd like to do your part, join and work with local civic organizations that are trying to make educational conditions better. If you'd like to know what other communities are doing to improve their schools, just write to the National Citizens Commission for the Public Schools, 2 West 45th Street, New York, 36, New York. That's the National Citizens Commission for the Public Schools, 2 West 45th Street, New York, 36, New York. Remember, better schools build a stronger America.
Now enjoy Dragnet, starring Jack Webb on the NBC Radio Network.
Welcome back. Well, an interesting case. I have to say that I was somewhat unimpressed by the final clue because the facial tissue could have been an indication that there had been a woman in the room, but it didn't necessarily have to be the client. And the motto, of course, of Barrie Craig continues to be, I'll believe you until I have to get you convicted for murder. Well, we actually only had a few lost episodes between the last show and this one. The titles between the last episode were The Haunted Husband and Loot for a Lady. However, I should note that I mentioned this episode was from November. This is actually the last 1953 episode we have. When we come to you again, it'll be a 1954 episode of Barrie Craig. So we'll, I guess, have to be looking forward to that. And there are quite a few more episodes in 1954 than we've had in 53. So, all right, well, that will do it for. We do have one brief listener comment. Just a simple, great show on Podcast Alley from Nelson. Well, thanks so much. All right, well, be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley. I can announce we finished first on Podcast Alley for the first time ever in the month of December. So definitely want to continue that forward. Encourage you to cast your vote for the show at podcastalley.greatdetectives.com. I do want to encourage you to pick up a copy of my new Kindle ebook, All I Needed to Know I Learned from Columbo. We examine 7 great detectives, including Nero Wolfe, Columbo, Sherlock Holmes, and Adrian Monk. Take a little bit of a look at their history, and then take a look at some life lessons based on their adventures. It's available for $1.99 at Amazon.com, and you can also borrow it out if you're an Amazon Prime member. That's All I Needed to Know I Learned from Columbo. But now let's get into today's episode. This one comes from August 29th of 1950, The Movie Company.
Hello, Yukon 28209. Yes, this is Candy Matson.
Eat that baby on the tree.
Fix those dolly tracks.
And look out for that cable, it's hot.
Mallard, what in the name of the San Francisco Police Department are you doing up here on Telegraph Hill?
Working, Candy, in the name of the San Francisco Police Department.
Here, with these people who are making the movie?
Yeah, how about that? Me, a lieutenant in homicide, and I'm assigned to riding herd on these Hollywood characters.
Oh, it's better than murder.
I'll take murder any day. What are you doing around here?
I did some shopping at Speedy's this morning. While I was pinching the avocados, they told me that there was a Hollywood gang over by Coit Tower shooting some scenes for a movie with a San Francisco background.
They might just as well have stayed in the studio. They brought their own lawns, prop trees, fake bushes, the works. If it ever snowed up here on Telegraph Hill, they'd have brought some of that along, too.
You've never worked in Hollywood, Millard. Only God can make a tree, but Hollywood presumes to improve on them. What are they doing now?
Just getting ready to shoot a scene, I think.
Oh.
They've been rehearsing it all morning.
What's it all about, do you know?
As far as I can figure, it's a story about San Francisco right after the gold rush. Look at all the costumes.
Very authentic. Looks like they'd been shipped around the horn. By the way, Millard, do you know who's in the picture?
Some lush tomato named Cherry Dana and a Colorado boy, Buff Arnold.
Arnold? Did you say Buff Arnold?
That's right. Why?
Oh, forgive me, Millard, dear. I knew Buff Arnold when he didn't have a place to house in. He professed to carry a very warm torch for me.
Aha. So that's why you so casually dropped by.
Oh.
An old flame, huh?
Don't be ridiculous. I didn't even know the guy was here, let alone still in pictures.
A likely story.
All right, quiet, please. Let's have quiet.
Quiet. This is a take.
All set, Mr. Dix. We're ready.
Good. Okay, Cherry, we'll roll this one. Take a chance on it. Just remember to keep up against those trees. We don't want any shots of those modern buildings below the hill.
Oh, remember, Red. Where is my old pal, Buff Arnold, Millard, dear?
By me. Judging by what's been going on, he's not in this particular scene.
All right, stand by. Roll 'em.
Scene 47, take 10.
Wait a minute. Cut. Oh, where's that coming from?
Out on the bay, Mr. Dix.
Fine thing, a present-day steamer whistle in an 1850 picture. Hold it. Ames.
Yes?
Let me know when the fool ship is tied up. We won't shoot the scene until it's docked.
Yes, sir.
Darn it, I was hoping I'd see some action.
Well, I'll give you some action. Come on, walk around with me, Candy. I'll show you all the sights.
Sights like what, for instance, Millard?
Oh, all the lights they brought up here. They must have 1,000 of them.
Undoubtedly to wash out the wrinkles on the leading lady's face.
And talk about props. They must have taken a whole freight train to get them up here.
Well, I have to have them.
For instance, look, right up there.
Where, Millard?
Up there, above. In that tree. Hanging by their necks.
Oh, Millard.
Don't jump like that, Cupcake. They're only dummies hanging from those ropes.
3 of them. They look so realistic.
I must admit, they really do. I understand they use them in a scene where they recreate a lynching in Portsmouth Square.
Recreate, did you say?
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. Take another look, honey bun. A good look at the one in the middle.
What are you trying to... Try me for lard. That one in the middle is no dummy.
You're no dummy either, boy mine. How many times have you looked up there?
Just a couple of times, but the last time I looked, the one in the middle wasn't an ex-human being.
With that, I toss the whole thing in your lap, Millard. I promote you back to homicide.
Oh, why didn't these characters stay in Hollywood?
Tis a bit of a shame, isn't it? Cluttering up our lovely Telegraph Hill trees with gently swaying corpses. Come on, Millard. Let's give the director a slight touch of apoplexy.
The National Broadcasting Company presents Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
It's funny how sometimes when you're lazy and want to do nothing except live the good, pure life, trouble comes up and belts you over the head with a vengeance. Well, that's the way it happened to me. I'd just finished a deal that took me 3 weeks to crack. I made some good money out of it, banked it, and sat back to relax. But when I heard about the movie company on location on the other side of the hill, my curiosity got the better of me. As of that moment, my contemplated relaxation was at an end. Period. Paragraph. I literally walked right into trouble because there was Mallard and cut down.
Okay, Mr. Dix. Take a good look at him. You recognize the gent?
I recognize him, yes, but I don't know him. He was one of the extras we used in a scene yesterday.
Did he come up from Hollywood with you?
I'm pretty sure he didn't. I think he was hired here locally. Wait a minute. Who's this young lady? I don't want any outsiders in on this.
Don't fret your little head, Mr. Dix. Aside from being a material witness, she's a well-known private investigator.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't know.
That's all right. No need to apologize. Some of my best friends are movie directors.
Who would keep the roster on your personnel?
My assistant, Bill Ames.
Is he around?
Well, I'm right here, Lieutenant.
Oh, good. Can you give us any dope on this fellow?
Oh, golly, I'm afraid not. I've seen him, but I wouldn't know his name from Adam.
How about the payroll? When do you pay off the extras?
Ah, that's a thought.
We pay off at 5 o'clock tonight.
Why don't we come back then, Millard? We can check off the names against the pay vouchers. There's one thing extras like to do, and that's get paid. The name that doesn't show up is our friend the corpse.
Okay, we'll let it go like that. What do you pay off?
Room 873, Montfair Hotel.
Make sure everybody's there, unless they want a little trouble thrown at them. I'm sorry, Mr. Dix. You can go on with your shooting now.
No more today. It's too unnerving. Ames, knock it off. Call will be for 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, sharp.
Right, Chief.
Break it up, everybody. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning in costumes. And that means 8 o'clock. Understand? Morning.
You mind waiting here for a moment, Candy? I want to put in a call to the coroner's office for a wagon.
Sure, that's all right. Go ahead.
Good. It'll only be a few minutes.
Mr. Dix, pardon me.
Yes?
Can you tell me where Buff Arnold is staying?
What do you want with Buff Arnold, young lady?
I used to know him when he was playing bit parts in Hollywood.
Oh. Did you work in Hollywood?
I did a little time down there, sitting around in agents' offices.
You know, you're a sharp little cookie. Say, all of a sudden I've got an idea.
I'll bet.
No. On the level, believe me. I have a small part coming up that'd fit you to a T. Good-looking gal, wise, supposed to work in her father's store selling supplies to the miners. Can you act at all?
I used to shoot a fairly sharp mess of dialogue.
Do you live close by?
Right over there, 1 block. Penthouse on the top.
All the better. As soon as your policeman friend removes the deceased there, why don't we go over to your place and look at the script?
You know something? I've got an idea that's the idea you had the idea about. Okay, I'll look at the script. But for your information, Mr. Dix, I'm interested only in playing a part in your picture. Mallard came back, and I told him what had developed with Dix. He shot me a look that had more question marks in it than a government income tax form. I assured him I could handle the situation, and he left with the body, still clad in its 49er prospector's outfit. Dix issued some final orders, took me by the arm, and we strolled over to my place.
Charming, but positively charming.
Thank you.
What a gorgeous view. How long have you lived here, Miss... Oh, now, isn't that silly? I don't even know your name.
Matson. Candy Matson.
Candy Matson. Never have I heard a name match a personality so completely. I'm Reginald Dix. Just call me Reg.
As you say, Reg. Would you like a drink?
Oh, splendid. Soda highball?
I think I can scrape one together.
This is absolutely enchanting. I'm going to ask to make all my pictures in San Francisco from now on.
I don't think you'd go wrong. Of course, it'd be a little rough if you were making a picture with an Indian background and needed shots of the Taj Mahal and the Himalayas.
Oh, simple. I'd change it to the Ferry Building in Twin Peaks.
Very good. Here you are, Red.
Thank you. I can use this after that messy discovery up there on that tree. Well, here's to crime.
That's a charming toast. Now then, about this part you were speaking of, I don't even belong to the Screen Actors Guild anymore.
Oh, a mere detail. I'll call the studio tonight and have them arrange your membership.
As simple as that. You know, I think if some of your bright boys got together, you could win the war in Korea without half trying.
Oh, let's not be snide, my dear.
Mm-hmm. Oh, excuse me a moment. Someone at the door.
Certainly. Whoever it is, though, send them away.
Yes, Master.
Hi.
Hi. But now that we've established our highs, is there something I can do for you?
I'm Cherry Dana. Is Mr. Dix here?
Oh, why, yes. Would you wait here, please?
I will not wait here. I want in.
Now, just a minute.
There you are, Red. You have a short memory, haven't you?
Cherry, what are you doing here? I'm having a conference.
So I see.
I hate to mention it, but this happens to be a private home, Miss Dana. I'll have to ask you to leave.
Don't be boring. You lured my director up here, and I'm going to see that some little local wench doesn't put the squeeze play on him.
Why, you pampered brat. Get out of here right now, or I'll show you how a local wench can back up words with action.
Oh, now hold on here, both of you. Cherry, I resent this intrusion just as much as Miss Matson does, I'm sure.
I'll bet. What about me? You said you were going to drive me back to the hotel.
Oh, very well. It slipped my mind. Oh, I'm sorry, Candy. I dislike scenes of this sort. We'll discuss our business later?
Good. I find now that I'm extremely interested. Good afternoon, Miss Dana. I'll see you later. I was so mad I was boiling. If I'd been a thermometer, quicksilver would have been streaming out of my ears. I did the most natural thing, took a shower, and little by little I simmered down. Actors and actresses are like anybody else. Most of them are darn nice people just trying to make a living, but one ham like Cherry Dana can ruin the picture. Just as I was getting dressed, the ferry building siren blew its top, indicating 4:30. I had to step on it if I was going to be at the Mont Fair at 5 in time for the payroll sequence with the extras. So I stepped on it and found myself in a minor mob scene outside room 873 at the Mont Fair Hotel. Mallard spotted me, grabbed me by the arm, and took me inside the room.
I really didn't expect to see you, Candy.
Why not?
I thought perhaps you were discussing contract terms with Dix by now. Big Hollywood star and all that.
Oh, Mallard, cut it out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. As I call out your names, step up fast and sign the voucher. Anderson, Robert. Apperson, Lou. Bennett, Bert, Beverly.
I studied the faces as they stepped by the cashier's table set up in the room. They were all types. Anyone could have been a villain, a dance hall girl, a hero, an ingenue, or just plain extra. The roll call droned on in the background. The whole thing took about 10 minutes. And suddenly we were alone. Ames, the assistant director, the girl who had done the actual paying, Mallard, and myself.
Well, that's it.
Who's missing, Ames?
You're in for a bit of a shock.
How do you mean?
Nobody's missing. Everybody listed on our payroll checked in and was paid off.
What?
That's right.
Did you recognize every person who had been paid off?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Well, this is a fine kettle of nothing. We have an extra who's working in the picture, and yet he isn't. So he ends up hanging by his neck from a tree on Telegraph Hill. Who was the Joker?
The Joker, the one you can play wild. Are you sure they're all paid?
Well, positive. Double-checked with their guild cards and signatures.
Well, isn't this cute?
Oh, excuse me, please. Hello? Yes, this is Ames. Oh, yes, Cherry.
What? He's what? Great Scott.
What's the matter, Ames? What is it? You're white as a sheet.
Dix. He's just been found shot to death in his room.
From San Francisco, the National Broadcasting Company is presenting Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
Reginald Dix, well-known Hollywood director, shot dead in his hotel room. We were looking for developments. We got them, but not the kind we expected. Mallard led the way up to the suite that Dix had been occupying on the top floor. There was a mob around the door, and my boy Mallard soon dispersed them and instituted some semblance of order. Dix was sprawled out on the balcony overlooking the bay, and an ever-widening pool of blood showed that he'd been hit in the chest. Cherry Dana was pacing the room, smoking a cigarette. Ames stood in the middle with his jaw flapping. And who should be in the room, too, but my old pal from my days in Hollywood, Buff Arnold.
Candy Matson. What a place for a reunion.
Yes, isn't it? How are you, Buff?
Ill. Terribly ill. If I have to step into the other room, I hope you'll understand. Reg was a great friend of mine.
Sure, let's go in the bedroom. You look sort of green. Besides, I have a few questions I'd like to ask you, Buff.
It's a deal. Anything to get out of here. Let's go.
Wait a minute, Candy. Who is this guy?
Buff Arnold, Mallard, the fellow I was speaking about.
Where were you going?
In there, he doesn't feel too good. The closest he's ever been to blood is a bottle of ketchup in color.
Okay. Don't let him out of your sight. I have a flock of questions and need a flock of answers.
As you say, Mallard.
And don't get carried away yourself.
This the bedroom?
Yeah.
Well, Buff, you seem to be doing all right.
A lot different than when I knew you in Hollywood, Candy.
You look swell, Buff. Too darn swell.
What do you mean?
You bring back too many memories.
You look mighty good yourself, Candy. You're no longer a plump little kid just out of high school. You're downright pretty, gal.
In the good old days, I'd have jumped through hoops to hear you say that.
Got any hoops handy? I'll say it again.
No soap.
Maybe we could revive some of those memories, Candy.
Not a chance, Buff Boy. Things have changed. Hollywood and everyone in it, including you, are a part of a dim, sad past. And instead of just plain Buff, that's a rebuff.
Very cute. I haven't heard the gag pulled since yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, did you hear about the body that was found on Telegraph Hill this morning?
I sure did. Now, poor Reg. I told him this picture had a jinx on it before we left the studio. Little things that happened right from the start.
Like what?
Well, in the first place, I wasn't even supposed to be in the picture. They were going to give it to some new kid as a build-up. A week before the first day of shooting, he up and disappeared. He hasn't been heard from since. When they shoved me into the breach. Then the assistant director tripped and fell off a catwalk, broke both legs. He had to be replaced.
Anything else, Buff?
Yeah. About that time, Cherry Dana whipped herself in a batch of temperament and walked off the lot. Held up production a week. Then the luggage for San Francisco was rerouted somewhere else. Never has caught up with us. Now the body this morning and Dick's just now.
Certainly sounds like a jinx. By the way, how do you and the great Cherry get along, Buff?
Fine. I try not to see her except on the set. Come here, Candy. Just let me hold you in my arms once. Just once. I want the feel of someone who's truly genuine.
You're still just a little boy, aren't you, Buff?
Okay, Arnold, I'd like to, Well, pardon me. I hate to break this up, but I want to talk to you, Mr. Arnold.
That was a fine time Mallard picked to walk in. And then I got to thinking, maybe it was a fine time. He was due to have a little fire set under him. As I walked out into the other room, the boys in blue had arrived, and they were swarming all over the place. Ames was no longer present, neither was Cherry Dana. I wasn't going to give Mallard the satisfaction of an explanation, so I eased out the door and went down to the lobby. I asked where Ames was staying and went back up to his room, 672. A knock on the door produced results.
Just a moment. Oh, Miss Matson. Something you wanted?
Yes, may I come in?
Why, yes. I was just lying down. This thing about Reg has knocked me for a complete loop.
It seems to be quite a shock to everybody. You've been with Reginald Dix for a long time, haven't you, Ames?
Well, off and on, yes. A good number of years.
How about La Dana?
Cherry? Well, I've known her extremely well, even before she became a top-flight star.
Can you give me any idea who might have had it in for Dix? If you can, you better spill. The truth will come out sooner or later, Ames. It always does in things of this sort.
I've only one little thing I can tell. I've already told it to your lieutenant friend.
Oh? And what's that?
As I got back from Telegraph Hill, I dropped by Reg's suite. Wanted to talk about tomorrow's shooting. As I drew near his door, I heard loud arguing.
Arguing? Who were the opponents?
Reg and Cherry Dana.
Mm-hmm. And what were they arguing about, Ames?
You?
So that's it. Tell me, is Cherry the kind of woman who would turn killer on an impulse?
It's hard to say. She has a terrible temper.
Mm-hmm. Does Buff Arnold fit into the picture in any way?
I don't know. He's a sly one, that Arnold. He plays his cards in strictly a commercial manner. May fit into the picture. He and Reg were never too friendly.
I see. Well, thanks, Amesy. I'll leave now. And you'd better lock your door. The way things are going, you might wake up to find yourself dead. I went up to Cherry Dana's suite, but I drew a blank there, no answer. So I went back to the scene of the murder, Dix's room's on the top floor. Mallard was just leaving. He shot me a look that would have knocked out a North Korean tank at 1,000 yards and started to brush on by me, but I would have none of it. Now, just a moment, Boy Blue. Come on back to that over 21 level. Just because Buff had his arms around me is no sign we were playing a scene from Romeo and Juliet.
I don't think I've seen that close a grip even in professional wrestling.
Oh, cut it out. What'd you turn up in there? Anything at all?
No, not a thing. Can't even find the murder weapon.
Got any ideas?
Lots of them. We've already taken Miss Dana into custody.
I had a hunch it was leading in that direction.
Incidentally, did you ever hear of a Christopher Seema? He's been a bookie around town here for several years.
Christopher Seema? No, can't say I have. Why?
He was the boy who was hanging from the tree. According to our files, he dabbled in everything from gambling to blackmail.
Seema. Seema, that name rings bells somehow, Mallard.
One other thing. This isn't personal, you understand?
Yeah.
But stay away from Buff Arnold. We've got our eye on him, too.
Little things were suddenly clicking way back in my mind, awfully vague, but the old processes from years before were coming to life ever so slowly. Mallard had work to do, plenty of it, down at the Hall of Justice, work in which I was included out. I went outside on California Street, watched him get into a squad car with two of his men, and I waved him a goodbye. That was when I had another idea. Dix's suite. Cops were through with it. The body had been removed. But I had a hunch that was the key to the situation. Knowing the manager of the Montfair, it was no trouble at all to get a key to Reg's suite, and that's where I headed, up to the top floor. I let myself into the darkened room, closed the door behind me. With the lights of the city way below seeping through the balcony window, I found a place in back of the settee and sat down to wait and think. The balcony window being opened, the roar of the city traffic underneath came gently through and helped my thinking. That's when it hit me. Seema. Several years before I had served my term in Hollywood, there was an actress named Vivian Seema. The same face as that of Cherry Dana. Now the clouds were beginning to lift, and at the same time the door opened in the suite and the silhouetted figure of a man entered the room.
Blast the luck.
Okay, Buff. Relax. What? This is Candy. Come on over here by the settee. Hurry. I'm expecting company.
What are you doing here, Candy?
You've got the wrong page of the script. That's my line. What are you doing here, Buff?
Honestly, you've got to believe me. I left my lighter here this afternoon. I was afraid the police would find it. Naturally, I can't afford any bad publicity. It ruined my career.
I believe you, Buff. You always were fond of that career, weren't you? Don't answer, just keep quiet.
What's up?
A guy named Seema, if I'm right. Who's this? Reginald Dix didn't like him. Wait a minute. I think I hear someone coming along the hall. The door slowly opened and closed again. The dim light from the hall showed the form of another man. Then the dark figure moved slowly but surely across the room. It stopped for a second or two, as though listening for something. Then moved again to the balcony, out onto the balcony, and whoever it was grabbed the ledge above, hoisted his feet up onto the iron grillwork, and hung over the city. That's when I acted. Okay, Ames, stay right where you are, in that position.
What? You think I'm a fool?
Candy's out on that ledge. He's ducked around the outside on that ledge.
I'm a fool. Quick, Buff, go down the hall and get out on the fire escape. Cut him off.
Okay, what are you going to do?
Go out on that ledge after him. You better come back, Ames. You're cut off at both ends.
Oh, no, I'm not. Not with this gun I've got.
That's the same gun you killed Dix with, isn't it? Very clever hiding it up on this ledge out here. No wonder Mallard and his boys didn't find it. Look out there on the city, Ames. One misstep and you go off into space. Think it over. You better come back.
Not on your life.
I'm coming after you.
I'm down at the other end, Candy.
Good. Now we've got him.
Yes. Yes, you have. Obviously, this is the end. Perhaps you don't know what it is to love. Perhaps you don't know what it is to be scorned. I do, painfully so. This is the end. But I'm not going to go alone. You're going with me, Miss Matson, like this.
No, the recoil. It'll knock you right off the ledge.
Oh!
So it was just a matter of jealousy. Is that right, Candy?
That's right, Mallard, dear. The same thing you developed when you walked in on Buff Arnold and me.
Okay, so I was burned up. Tell me more.
It was the name Seema that did it, Mallard. Do you know what that is?
All right, I'll play quizzies with you. What's the name Seema?
Seema is Ames, spelled backwards.
Uh-oh.
You see, that was Ames's real name. At one time, he had married Cherry Dana under the name of Seema. When she began to be big in pictures, she divorced him, but he carried the eternal torch.
Silly she wasn't worth it.
Of course not. Because she collected men. Reginald Dix, not because she loved him, but because she was fading in pictures, and because Dix was the only one who could keep her in front of the public.
Logical. But what about the Seema hung up in the tree on Telegraph Hill?
Uh-huh. There we have the plot. The Seema up in the tree was Ames's brother, a ne'er-do-well. The night that Ames arrived in town here, he looked up his brother, got a bit tight, and told him what he'd done. Caused the original leading man to disappear, shoved the original assistant director off a platform, breaking his legs. In general, did everything he could to sabotage the picture. Then he pulled the strings to get himself named as assistant director so he could be near Cherry.
Love and jealousy.
Mallard, I'll get to that in time. Cherry had vaguely promised that she'd remarry Ames. When he saw his own brother was going to blackmail him, he went crazy. That's when he strung him up with the dummies in the trees. From there, it was just a step to knock off Reginald Dix and have a clear track for himself.
I'll go back to what I said to begin with. Why did these characters from Hollywood have to come up here to San Francisco and louse up our scenery, as well as our police department?
Oh, to heck with your police department. That's the last time I'm going to climb around a ledge hundreds of feet in the air.
Not so strange. Buff Arnold was out on that ledge, too, wasn't he?
Oh, Mallard, sometimes you make me so... That reminds me, I have a date tomorrow night.
Sure, with Buff Arnold.
No, that's tomorrow morning. I'm driving him down to the railroad station. Date for tomorrow night? With you, Mallard, dear. We're going to see a Roy Acuff movie.
Oh, Candy. Roy Acuff. Monarch of all the cowboys.
Yeah, monarch of all the cowboys. I'll see him with you. And if that isn't love, I don't know what is.
Listen again next week at this same time. For excitement and adventure, just dial...
Candy Matson, Yukon 28209.
Heard tonight were Hal Burdick as Reginald Dix, John Grover as Ames, the assistant director, Mary Milford as Cherry Dana, Kurt Martell as Buff Arnold, and included in the cast was Ken Langley. Henry Leff plays the part of Lieutenant Ray Mallard. The program stars Natalie Masters as Candy and is written and directed by Monty Masters. Sound effects are created by Bill Brownell, and Eloise Rowan is heard at the organ. The characters in tonight's play were entirely fictitious. Any resemblance to actual people is purely coincidental. Tonight's engineer was Clarence Stevens. The program came to you from San Francisco. Dudley Manlove speaking. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, Candy Matson, I kind of like that whole idea of lighting a fire under Mallard. Maybe what Blair Brooks would need to consider in her never-ending quest for George Valentine. I also liked how they worked in that clever but subtle pun. I have a flock of questions that need a flock of answers. And then her statement of, yes, Mallard, dear. But anyway, another fine episode. The missing episodes, the last one we played was actually from about 2 months before, and the episodes that came between were the Olive Becker case, A Fugitive on Television, Candy is Behind Bars, The Fatal Fall, The Lo Jung case, The Society Matron Murder, Murder at the Network, The Burning House, and A Death in Sacramento. We're not going to have near as many. I think we only have one lost episode between this week's show and next week, so we'll be looking forward to that. I have a comment from Tim on Facebook. Yes, I can't believe I found this podcast. I absolutely love these types of shows. Josh asked regarding All I Needed to Know I Learned from Columbo. Is this available on the Nook? We will hopefully have the book available on the Nook in March, so it's still a couple months away. I will let you know when that is available for all of our listeners who use other types of ebook readers. All right, well, that will do it for today. We will be back tomorrow with Let George Do It. Well, this episode of The Great Detectives of Old Time Radio is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much for all your support. Today's episode of Let George Do It is called The White Elephant.
Personal notice. Danger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details. Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West, invite you to Let George Do It. The White Elephant, another adventure of George Valentine.
My dear Mr. Valentine, I don't write letters very often these days. Having friends with whom one exchanges the best of one's mind and heart has rather gone out of fashion. To exchange anything less is death already. Now, you mustn't misunderstand, Mr. Valentine. My brother and I have enjoyed our life of seclusion. After all, we've lived this way almost entirely, ever since our dear parents died in a train accident and left us alone at the age of 10. I only speak a little sadly because, as every person must, I've been going through the unpleasant task of making out a will, and I think you should be informed of the fact that I'm including you in my will. Yes, Mr. Valentine, I'm leaving you the sum of $1,000. You will receive this legacy when you have caught my murderer.
When?
Miss Alice May Edmund, number 1 Bartholomew Square.
Oh, that's the commercial district.
And on the letterhead, there's an engraving of a white elephant.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No, I was just going to ring the bell.
Is this number 1 Bartholomew
Go away.
Square?
No peddlers or agents allowed. No soliciting.
Oh, but we're not peddlers.
I'm saving you trouble, that's all. You'll only have an iron deer thrown at you. That isn't a house. It's a booby hatch. A 42-room booby hatch.
Okay, thanks very much. Goodbye.
All right, go on in. But me, I'll still go out. Keeper of the White Elephant barker for the train seals. I'm warning you, someday I'm going to kill that woman in there.
What?
Yeah.
What do you suppose is the matter with him?
Hey, look, Angel. 3 stories high. Gardens. Hey, you can't even hear the street in here.
Right in the middle of the city.
Yeah, a whole block of a house. Old-fashioned gewgaws on the
It's
woodwork.
white, George. Painted white.
Huh. Guess this is it, Booksy. The White Elephant.
Milk, Mr. Valentine, should only be drunk at a certain temperature of warmth.
Oh?
My brother Stephen taught me that. We much prefer it to tea in the afternoons, but naturally, if you would like a cinnamon wafer or...
Oh, we don't care for anything, thanks, Miss Edmund.
It's tea time. You'll have something. You'll join me. Jensen?
All right, Miss.
Look, Miss Edmund,
In the first place, this house. And I do wish you wouldn't stare about so. The antimacassars are quite clean, young lady, and I crocheted them myself.
I didn't mean...
It has 42 rooms. Yes, 42. So I'll grant you I've closed off a number of them. But even with the ones that aren't, it's large. It's quite large, and I like it that way. It's old-fashioned, it's gracious, and it absolutely is not a white elephant.
Well, an anachronism, maybe, in the middle of the town like
Because the white elephant, I am afraid, is me.
Huh?
Yes, on my stationery. The little white figure. It's the only way I have to get back at my family. To show them I know what they think of me.
Your family?
Oh, I know I have none. Just my brother and me, all alone in the world. He's such a wonderful person. There aren't any gentlemen like him anymore. But we're wealthy. Don't you see? Anybody who's wealthy has a family, Mr. Valentine. That man you bumped into on the way in here, that Clarence Morley, only a second cousin, but he calls me Aunt Alice. He kisses my hand. He simpers all over himself trying to get into this house. And as for Cousin you...
All right, Miss Edmund, so much for your family. What I want to know about is your murder.
Last week, someone tampered with the wiring, apparently, so that I was very nearly electrocuted.
Didn't you call the police?
Mr. Valentine, it's probably incomprehensible to a person as young as you, but I didn't do anything. I wasn't even sure, and I don't particularly care if I die. No, please. Please, why should I? I've outlived my time. In many ways, I seem so indestructible. It would be rather a relief to be murdered.
Here's the tea stuff, miss. I told you I'm not much in the kitchen. That's the only service I could...
Oh, all right, Jensen, all right. Now get out of here. Get back to your cottage. Go on.
Gladly.
Do you know something? The family I spoke of, they made me take him. But I generally won't let him in the house. For 20 years, Miss Brooks, I've done every bit of housework in this place myself. Yes, all by myself.
Well,
Miss Edmund, a second ago you were saying...
Excuse me. Stop that, will you? For heaven's sake, stop that thing and go on, get out of my house.
I'll turn it down. Take it easy, Alice. Yeah, that's good enough, isn't it?
Oh, it's you.
Volume controlled. Unusual in the gramophone. Wouldn't bring more than $50, though, I don't believe. Curio, maybe.
Mr. Valentine, this is Yule. I think I spoke of him. Another one of my cousins. A dear, dear relative.
Yeah, pleasure. Mother's side was third cousin.
And get your hand off that Sheraton.
This chair? Oh, no. Late 19th century imitation.
It is not. He's so kind, Mr. Valentine. He buys and sells for me.
Oh, could be mistaken. There's a real one in the library.
An antique dealer. Wouldn't you know from the beard?
Now, Alice.
I don't want to talk business today. I don't want to.
Well, I only hung around from the meeting to look at some things.
Get out, will you? Please, get out, please.
All right. But you don't look well, Alice. You ought to let us come visit more often.
What was the meeting he spoke of, Miss Edmund? I said, what was the...
He was playing Molly Brannigan again. It's a song a girl used to sing. A red-headed Irish servant girl. She went back to the old country 20 years ago. Oh, she was like a breath of sunshine.
Miss Edmund, what are you trying to say?
My brother and I have always been alone here since we were 10. Mr. Valentine, I am peculiar, you know. The meeting? Oh, it was the relative, that's all. I try to act like a harridan is supposed to. But I'm terrified of them.
What's the matter with you, Miss Edmund?
Oh, I'm all right. They want me to get out of the house. I don't really have any money. It's all in the house. It's valuable property. But it's mine, and I want to stay here. I don't know why I'm rambling, so they want to make me get out.
But how can they? Miss Edmund, this brother you talk about, this Stephen, can't he help?
Stephen's so kind. He won't let anything. He won't let...
Miss Edmund. Miss Edmund!
This glass, Brooksy, the milk. It's the milk she drank right in front of us. Somebody was trying to murder her, Brooksy. It was poisoned.
Now, take it easy, Mr. Valentine. I said we can't tell yet. She's all right. She's alive, and from my experience with her in the past, she has a constitution...
It was strychnine, wasn't it, Doctor? And from the smell of that milk there...
Undoubtedly an overdose, but I've treated her with it in the past.
What?
It's a legitimate remedy for certain conditions, you know. It was kept in the cupboard down by the butler's pantry.
Okay, I'll take a look. Have you called the police?
No, and I don't intend to.
What?
Not yet. No, please, listen to me.
I've known and admired Miss Edmonds for a very long time. That bravado of hers is all front, you understand. She's a very shy person.
What's that got to do
If
with...
she should live, Miss Brooks, she'd probably call off the investigation herself rather than risk invasion of her privacy in the house here. No, it has to be done from the inside. By you, Mr. Valentine.
And suppose she dies, Doctor?
Well, you've met the people who would benefit, Morley and Cousin Ewell. If one of them should conceivably be a murderer, he'd have only accomplished what they're all trying to do anyway, get her out of this house. So you don't think they testify against each other, do you?
But why do they want...
I get it. This property's worth a fortune, isn't it?
Precisely. The white elephant. Every day that she lives, she has to borrow against taxes. So they have to get her out. Or in a few years, there won't be any fortune left for them to inherit.
Yeah, here's the bottle, all right, Angel. Strychnine.
Somebody certainly had a choice. Sleeping powders, all the medicines right here by the
Hey, wait a minute. Look at this.
Hmm?
The ring on the counter, see? For moisture from the glass.
The gentleman says he poured the milk and then left it for her.
Uh-huh. So anybody who happened to come in right then, golden opportunity. Just spike a drink a little.
What is all this you're talking about, young man?
You...
I thought you left the house, went out.
Oh, I saw the doctor's car, came back. What's the matter with her?
Well, he'd better tell you. But you can tell me something.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Miss Edmonds' brother? She confused me on that.
Stephen? Her brother, Stephen? That brother of hers has been dead for 20 years.
Dead? Valentine, here.
Well, Doctor, is she...
No, she's alive. She's going to be all right. But perhaps you had better call the police.
What do you mean, Doctor?
I thought it would be so simple to track down just one person. That's why she's alive. A barbiturate acts against strychnine, you see.
A what do you mean?
You saw that stuff there in the cabinet. Sleeping powders. I'm trying to tell you why she's all right. It was in the milk, too. Agent and reagent. Poison antidote. Yes, believe it or not, the poor little white elephant is still with us because 2 people tried to poison her. 2 people tried to murder her.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. One of these days, science may come up with a method for keeping your car's windshield constantly clean. That would be just fine, because driving with a clouded windshield can be a hazard as well as a discomfort. Meantime, depend on the men at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations to keep your windshield sparkling clean. With them, this service is practically second nature. It's one of the reasons you'll notice more and more motorists pulling in at these stations every day of the week. And the reason this service is done so speedily is that they have the best equipment, including willing elbow grease. So next time your windshield has more than its share of road dust, drive in and drive out with the better vision and greater safety that a clean windshield gives you. Get this car saver service at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations. At all these service stations, you can count on top service and quality products, like RPM motor oil. And here's where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. And now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. Poison and antidote, and a little old lady who didn't particularly care whether she was killed or not, whose only desire was to be left alone in her strange, old-fashioned house. At first you wondered what reason there was for her fears, but now you know the only reason she's alive is because not 1 but 2 people tried to poison her. 2 negatives make a positive, and the poisons were such that they canceled each other out. Well, if your name is George Valentine, all you know is that now you have to work twice as fast.
Miss Edmond, did you see anybody touch that warm milk of yours today?
Oh, I forget. I don't know. It's so much more real 20 years ago.
Like that brother you keep talking about, I suppose?
We took care of each other. We weren't like the rest of the world. The scramble, the suffering that people call excitement. I talked about Stephen as though he were alive, didn't I?
Miss Edmund, perhaps we'd better...
And about her, too, the Irish servant girl. Because she was the last happy thing in this house. Please listen to her.
I still don't see what you're driving at.
She would have fitted in so beautifully. She was young, too, only 19. So much younger, but it didn't make any difference. So full of life. Cousin Ewell knows. He knew her.
Miss
Now let it
Edmund.
go on, Brooks.
But Stephen was in love. I hated her afterwards, but now I don't. Wherever she is, she's probably never even guessed. There was a boy in the old country. She showed me the cablegram. I helped put her aboard ship that same afternoon. I begged her to stay, but she left to be married. Not thinking, just happy. My brother came here, home, and went out, and I never saw him again. And that's when they all started coming. That's when the white elephant was born. The rich, sick relative alone in my house. It was Morley who called the next morning. They said my brother had gone out and shot him.
Shot himself, huh? Because the girl left him. And you haven't cared about anything since then. Beginning to catch on now. They've handled all your affairs since then, right?
Yes. And if you've talked about Stephen as though he were alive, it's only to keep yourself alive.
Yes.
And now they want you out of the house because it won't be long until the taxes have eaten up its value.
Oh, there's a paper on the bureau.
This? George, it's a court thing.
It says I'm incompetent.
Well, you've heard her. You've seen how she acts.
That wasn't what I asked you, Mr. Morley.
But what's the sensible thing? You don't just stand by and watch anybody throw money away. But there's the first mortgage already in.
Who'd benefit, Mr. Morley, if she had died an hour ago?
Well, I would, for one. I don't mind telling you.
The police will want to hear that, too.
Now, see here.
They're already running tests on the poison in the glass.
Well, I didn't touch it. I was on the telephone at the time business downtown 5 or 10 minutes. My office will verify
The telephone in the hall, Mr. Morley?
Yes, crazy old-fangled contraption. It's the only one in this
The door to the butler's pantry was open, George. And if you were standing in there at the telephone,
Yeah, that's
you...
right, Brooksy. Glass would have been right in plain sight, wouldn't it?
Well, I didn't notice. I didn't even see it. Why did that stupid Jensen leave it there in the first place?
Stupid Jensen, my friend, is a servant that you hired for her.
Well, who else would stay here except a thick-skinned old coot like him? Mr. Valentine, she's been getting worse. Fussy, picky. And this preoccupation with her brother.
We know all about that, Mr. Morley. We also know what her own doctor thinks about her.
He's a fool, too. An old admirer of Alice's. Valentine, what would you think if you came in and found her prowling among her brother's old things? Of course it was a tragedy for her. But now, 20 years later, to find her, she's reopened that room of his, nosing around and mooning over the old things.
Is that what happened to you?
Yes. Just yesterday. She was trying to pretend that she hadn't seen. Just cleaning, she said. Get out, she said. Leave me alone. Do you think that a normal person
I don't know.
acts like...
I don't know, Mr. Morley. But why don't you tell me how she acted today at that family meeting?
Meeting?
Yeah.
Well, you saw my reaction. She said she wouldn't ever leave this house. Not ever. And no court order could make her. And for us to stop bothering her. Or she'd make us stop. Just stubbornness. Just insane. Just insane.
Insane, my friend? No, I finally realized little Miss Edmund has been pointing in the right direction after all. That Brother Stephen, dead 20 years. Yeah. That's how we solve it.
George, this was the maid's room.
Yeah, sure, Brooksy. And it's been closed all this time, too, hasn't it? Stephen was in love with her. Look at that. The old-style maid's sitting room for a little red-headed Irish girl.
Not very big, is it?
Wait a minute, I'll get the lights. There we are. Look at the dust and the cobwebs.
George, look. On the mirror.
Yeah. She collected things, all right. True to type. Paper flowers, dance program, carnival dog.
And the snapshot.
Ah.
Don't you recognize him?
What do you mean?
Without that stomach and antique dealer's mustache. It's Cousin Yule.
Oh, yeah. A day at the beach. We knew she was the sunshine girl. Probably played the field. Say, isn't there anything from Stephen?
George, listen to this. The tea was just perfect, and I reward you with a rose. Won't you join my sister and me for some phonograph records in the parlor this evening?
What in the...
Notes from Stephen. George, she saved them. There's nothing to give us even a hint about his death.
Isn't there? Wait a minute, Brooksy. Listen to this one. Today I told Alice May we should leave this house. It is gloomy. If you would only say yes to me, there is nowhere on earth we couldn't go in with blessing. You have shown us what sunshine can be.
Well, if she'd accepted him. But I certainly can't blame her. I'd have run to a fuddy-duddy like
No,
that.
that's not what I meant, Brooksy. Stephen offered to leave this house. Don't you see what...
Miss Edmund!
Yeah, but where is she? What...
George, she must be up at the head of the stairs there. From her room. Oh, these lights, you can't see.
Mr. Valentine! Where are you? Mr. Valentine!
There had already been 2 attempts on this lady's life, and now a third. It was a police matter in the first place, Valentine.
Take it easy, Riley, please. Take it easy. Hello, Doctor.
Oh, it's about time you got here.
I came as quickly as I could. Didn't even know where the maid's quarters were. Here, I'll take her.
Oh, I'm all right.
Now what happened, Miss Edmund? You ran out to the head of the stairs. You called Valentine.
All right.
Sure, you're all right. Just lie still now.
Look, Valentine, I said I'm taking over. Earlier today, any one of these guys could have got at that milk.
What did you say, Riley?
I said any one of them. The milk sat there for a good half hour.
Any one of them wouldn't have used 2 poisons, Lieutenant.
Huh?
That counteracted each other.
Well, no, I grant you, but...
Wait a minute. Morley and Yule, why did she go in the other room? You too, Doctor. Miss Brooks can take care of her, all right.
Well, that's your idea, Valentine. Sergeant, keep your eye out.
Mr. Valentine, I'm trying to remember. I was frightened. I was at the head of the stairs.
No, wait, please, Miss Edmund. Riley, what did you find out, the records on Stephen's death, huh?
Well, he committed suicide. Shot himself. Went out to a public place, got drunk, just like ordinary people.
Yeah?
He had been jilted by a red-headed girl half his age who went away and left him. But he couldn't just cry in his beer. He pulled out a gun, shot himself. In front of witnesses.
They don't have people like him anymore. Yes, I told you what it was, Mr. Valentine. Didn't I?
Uh-huh.
We thought your brother's death might have had something to do with all this today, but... Well, I guess we were wrong.
Now, it's simpler than you think, Angel. Miss Edmund, you waited to drink the milk until I got here.
I what, George?
Brooksy, you just said no one person would give 2 poisons that worked against each other, made someone just a little sick. Well, Miss Edmund is one person who would.
Yeah? What is all this? What's the name of it?
And she's taken the medicines long enough. She would have known how they'd act. The doctor could have told her. So, Miss Edmund, you wanted me out here to see it all, didn't you? Because that family out there was going to get you out of this house, and you'd sworn you'd stop them. Well, that was your idea of how to do it, wasn't it?
Mr. Valentine, they don't understand.
You knew that if you could cast the suspicion of murder at them, no court would ever believe them when they tried to say you were peculiar, incompetent to handle your own affairs. So you would have won. You would have stayed on in your house.
There's no reason for me to leave. But that is
Look, Miss Edmund, you're quite fussy. You're meticulous. That glass of milk of yours sat handy on the counter after Jensen prepared it for half an hour. Now, the first words you said to me today were, milk should always be drunk at a certain temperature of warmth. Warm milk. Well, in half an hour, it would have been cold. So why didn't you say something? Why did you drink it without noticing? Unless you were the one who doctored it yourself.
What if I did? What if I did? It's my house. Why shouldn't I fight for it? It's mine, not theirs. I can go bankrupt if I want to.
So that's all it was, huh? Tempest in a teapot.
Oh. I'm sorry. You poor thing. If it meant so much to you not to leave this place...
Yeah, Riley. We thought the key to the whole thing was her brother. And I wish I didn't have to say that maybe it is.
What are you talking about, George?
Brooksy, we'd left the door to this room open. She could see us from the head of the stairs. And I suppose she called out in terror and fainted and fell.
Valentine, I don't get...
She wasn't pushed, Riley. It was terror. At seeing us in this room.
Valentine. Oh.
Yes, Miss Edmund? It's an old-fashioned made sitting room, Riley. Now, it's only a guess. It's all it can be. But I can think of a way this would all tie together. And all for her brother. What's through there, Miss Edmund? Bedroom? Okay, it's the closed-off place. And why Miss Edmund wouldn't leave this house, why she couldn't. The memories that held her. Memories of herself. Of things she'd done 20 years ago. Okay, let's see what's behind this curtain.
Good Lord.
Red hair. White apron.
Yeah. 20 years. It's the Irish servant girl.
George.
I know, Brooksy, I know. But when people become hermits like that, there's generally a reason.
She was the only one who ever told anybody she'd put the girl on the boat.
Uh-huh. Including the guy she did it for, I suppose.
Only when she told him it didn't do any good. He killed himself. She did it and still lost her brother. And she had to stay on and on in this house. This prison of her own making.
Miss Alice May Edmund. All kinds of loves, I guess, Brooksy. All kinds of people. The white elephant? There's an understatement.
If your car hates to get going in the morning, if it drags the way it would on a sand bed and labors up hills, it may be the fault of gummy gasoline. Most raw gasolines contain impurities that form power-robbing gum. The only way to get rid of the impurities is to refine them out. And Chevron Supreme is the gasoline that's super refined to prevent engine-sticking gum. Further, super refined Chevron Supreme gives you all the qualities in careful balance that your car needs for every driving condition throughout the West. This proper balancing means faster starting, faster pickup, smoother power on hills. And it means, too, that you can depend on Chevron Supreme for plus mileage and for the new car feeling. Ask for it where your car's windshield gets a real cleaning at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard Oil Company of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George, with Virginia Gregg as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Wally Mayer is Lieutenant Riley, Lorene Tuttle was heard as Alice, Ted Osborne as Morley, Larry Dobkin as Ewell, and Herb Butterfield as the Doctor. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, another episode of Let George Do It that succeeds in definitely messing with your head. I was kind of going all over the first time I saw it. Really some good effective twist and a surprising ending I would not have guessed from the beginning. Well, for those of you who have the app or our premium site, we've got a real special treat for you today. For our app extra, it's an episode of a somewhat rare old-time radio comedy. It's called That Winslow Boy. And Bob Bailey makes a pretty significant supporting role, and I think you'll enjoy it, particularly if you've been with the show from the beginning. It's pretty funny, and also a relatively early appearance by Bob Bailey from December 1941. All right, well, listener comment here, just a couple great show and best old-time radio podcasts, bar none. From Podcast Alley. I appreciate all your comments and your votes on Podcast Alley. A reminder, we do other old-time radio podcasts. There's our old-time Dragnet podcast. We're into the 1954 episodes of Dragnet. We've gone through 250-plus episodes, and that's available over at radiodragnet.com. And the old-time Radio Superman show. We're just starting up the new serial, about 8 parts in to our latest serial, so you can download those really quick, get caught up at laserandsword.com. All right, well, that will do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. In the meanwhile, send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Well, this episode is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners, among those Richard and LaDonna, and Mr. Rockwell, and also Stephen. Thank you so much for your support, and as is the case with all donations of $7 or more, we'll be sending along access to our premium site. All right, well, now it's time for today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, and this one is actually based on an original Arthur Conan Doyle story. It's The Case of the Engineer's Thumb.
From New York, the makers of Clipper Craft Clothes for Men and 1,036 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Our stories are based upon the character of Sherlock Holmes, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sherlock Holmes is played by John Stanley, Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley, and the dramatizations are by Edith Meiser. Well, here we are as usual, toasting our hands in front of Dr. Watson's crackling fireplace. Feels awfully good. Say, I thought my right hand would drop off. It got so cold tonight holding my hat coming down the street, Doctor.
Let's see, Mr. Harris. Yes, slightly nipped, perhaps, but no real signs of frostbite. Oh, yes, reminds me of a patient I once had. Now, his hand was in a really bad way. Not from the cold, mind you, but from an encounter with a heavy and not too blunt instrument. Holmes always called it The Adventure of the Engineer's Thumb.
I thought you were leading up to a story, Dr. Watson. The Adventure of the Engineer's Thumb. Sounds sufficiently bizarre.
Oh, it was, Mr. Harris, it was. Strange in its inception and dramatic in its details. Yes, I don't think I can do better than tell you that one. It began with one of the goriest patients any doctor ever had collapse in his waiting room, and it ended with Holmes getting himself in the tightest spot he was ever called upon to get... Oh, but hadn't you better say a few words first?
Thank you, Doctor. You'll go far and wide, and you won't find quality clothes so modestly priced as Clippercraft. Because even in the face of rising markets, Clippercraft has kept its prices down. This has been possible for just one reason, a big reason, the famous Clippercraft Plan. The Clippercraft Plan concentrates the buying power of 1,036 of the nation's finest stores from coast to coast, providing year-round economies in manufacturing and distribution. Cost of production is cut way down, and you are the gainer. That's why you pay less for Clippercraft. Only $40 and $45 for a Clippercraft suit. Only $40 for a top coat or overcoat, and only $26.50 for sport jackets. What's more, they're available at your own local independent store, where you get friendly, personal attention. See for yourself. Compare them with clothes selling for many dollars more. And now, Dr. Watson, will you go on with your story?
It was in the summer of '89, Mr. Harris, some little time after my marriage. After that important event, you remember, I abandoned Holmes and our Baker Street rooms and returned to civil practice. Oh, I still dropped in on him, of course, and now and then I even persuaded him to forego his bohemian surroundings and come and partake of a respectable Sunday dinner with Mary and me.
And how did he and Mrs. Watson get along?
Splendidly. She adored him, Mr. Harris. Well, I had settled down and become a respectable married man. Practice steadily increasing and all that. My house was no great distance from Paddington Station, and I had a few patients from among the officials. One morning, a little before 7, I was awakened by the maid rapping frantically at my door.
Dr. Watson! Oh, Dr. Watson, sir!
Oh, hello, yes, come in.
Oh, Dr. Watson, come quick.
What's up, Millie? What's happened?
An accident, sir, a nasty accident. Here's his card.
Mr. Victor Hatherley, hydraulic engineer, 16A, Victoria Street, SW.
Yes, sir, walked over from the station, he did. I let him in. He's downstairs now in the consulting room. Looks like death, he does.
Well, it can't be too serious if he had the strength to walk over from the station by himself.
Looks like he's in pain, sir. It's his hand, his left hand. Bandaged up with a handkerchief, it is. And it's all dripping with blood.
Oh, dear. Sounds more serious than I suspected. Millie, you might go and heat some water. I'll go right down to him.
Yes, sir.
Severe hemorrhage. Wonder what the accident was. Oh, Mr. Victor Hatherley. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm sorry to wake you up so early. I had a serious accident during the night. I came in by train this morning. They told me at the station that you were a good doctor. I came here.
A night journey? That in itself is a rather tiring and monotonous affair.
You couldn't call my night monotonous. Monotonous? Never had a less monotonous night.
Stop it. Pull yourself together.
I'm sorry. I've been making a fool of myself for the relief, you understand. I apologize.
Oh, no, not at all. Often happens in a case of shock. Here, take a swig of this brandy.
That's better.
Now let's have a look at your hand.
It's my thumb, Dr. Watson, or rather what used to be my thumb. Here, take a look.
Good heavens, this is a terrible injury. Flesh badly mangled.
Will it have to be amputated?
No. I think we can save it. Unpleasant wound. Must have bled considerably.
Yes, it did. I guess I fainted when it happened. When I came to, I was still bleeding, so I tied one end of a handkerchief very tightly around the wrist and braced it with a twig.
Excellent. You should have been a surgeon.
Just a question of hydraulics, Dr. Watson, well within my own province.
Must have been done by a very sharp and heavy instrument.
A cleaver, Dr. Watson.
Accident?
No, an attacker. A murderous attack.
Dear, that sounds serious.
Yes, I shall have to tell my story to the police, I suppose, but between you and me, I doubt if they'll believe my statement.
Problem, eh? Well, if it's anything of that nature you want solved, I strongly recommend my friend Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes? I've heard of him, of course. Do you think he'd be interested? Could you give me an introduction?
Oh, I'll do better than that. I'll take you around to him myself. But first let's attend to this thumb. Then we'll call a cab and drop in on Holmes for a bit of breakfast.
Another bit of Mrs. Hudson's omelette, Mr. Hatherley.
No, thank you, Mr. Holmes. I feel a new man since Dr. Watson bandaged my hand, and your excellent breakfast has completed the cure.
Good. Now you can tell us your story if you're sure you feel strong enough.
Well, I'll take up as little of your valuable time as possible. To begin with, I must tell you that I'm an orphan and a bachelor residing alone in lodgings here in London. By profession, a hydraulic engineer, I had 7 years' experience with the firm of Venner and Matson before I decided to go into business for myself. Well, the start of any new firm is always rather slack, I suppose. So far, I've had 3 consultations and 1 small job.
Not what you'd call a rushing business.
Well, no, not exactly. Every day from 9 till 4, I waited in my little den until at last my heart began to sink and I began to feel I should never have any practice at all.
Well, I know that feeling. Why, would you believe it? The first 2 months after I resumed my medical practice, I hardly
Watson, don't interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, Mr. Hatherley.
It all began yesterday, just as I was thinking of closing up for the day. My clerk came in to say that there was a gentleman waiting to see me on business. His card gave me the name of Colonel Lysander Stark. Well, I told the clerk to show him in by all means.
Colonel Lysander Stark. Picturesque name, Watson? What sort of man did he turn out to be?
Slightly over middle height and exceedingly thin. I don't think I've ever seen a thinner man. His whole face sharpened away into nose and chin, and the skin was drawn tightly over his protruding cheekbones.
An invalid?
No, Mr. Holmes, I should say just naturally emaciated. His eye was bright, a trifle too bright, I thought. His step brisk and his bearing assured. He spoke with a slight German accent.
I have the honor. This is Mr. Victor Hatherley, nicht wahr?
Why, yes, Colonel Stark. Won't you sit down?
Danke. You are recommended to me, sir, for a young man who is clever and also discreet.
Well, thank you.
Not at all. I know also that you are an orphan, bachelor, and you live alone.
Quite correct, but I don't see why that can possibly concern you. I understood that it was on a professional matter that you wanted to see me.
Ja, gewiss. I have a professional commission, but I must insist on secrecy, absolute secrecy. And that is easier from a man what has no family.
If I promise to keep a secret, Colonel Stark, you may depend on my doing so.
You promise, then?
I promise.
Good. Now we can get down to business. One moment, please. Yes, it is as it should be. These clerks, you know, sometimes they are so interested in the affairs of the master. Bring your chair close to mine, huh?
Very well.
Yeah. Now we can talk with safety.
But if you don't mind, Colonel, my time is valuable.
So, to whom then? I know how much work you have done lately, my young friend. Oh. You do not fool me. How does 50 guineas for a night's work strike you?
Why, well, that's very generous, Colonel Stark.
I have said a night's work. An hour's work would be more correct. Your opinion is all we ask. I have a hydraulic press. It is in bad order. You show us what is wrong, we fix it ourselves. You will do that, huh?
Why, of course.
Good. You will come tonight by the last train?
Where to?
Erfurt, that is in Berkshire. Your train arrives at 11:15. A carriage will come to meet you.
Oh, your place is out in the country?
Yeah, a good 7 miles from the station. There's no train back. You will spend the night.
Yes, but couldn't I come at a more convenient hour? Tomorrow in the daytime?
Impossible. It is for your inconvenience that we pay the 50 guineas. And for the secrecy.
Of course, but perhaps if you could explain the reason for all this caution.
Very well, I explain. You know, do you not, that Fuller's Earth is a very valuable product and is to be found only in 2 places in England?
Why, yes, I believe I have heard something to that effect.
Some time ago I have bought a place, a very small place, you understand, and one day I am so fortunate I discover a small deposit of Fuller's Earth in my backyard.
Congratulations.
I investigate. I find it is a link between 2 so much larger deposits, but in the property which belongs to my neighbors. These people, they do not know the value of their land.
So you bought it up?
No, Mr. Hatherley. I am not a rich man. I have not the money. So I speak to some of my friends, and we work our little deposit in secret, so we can earn the money to buy the land near us.
Yes. But I don't understand what use you can make of a hydraulic press in excavating Fuller's Earth.
We compress the earth into bricks so we can remove them without showing what they are. That is a detail, a mere detail. So, I have taken you into my confidence. I expect you tonight, Mr. Hatherley.
I shall be there, Colonel Stark.
Good. Not a word to a soul. It is best you do not even tell anyone that you are going away.
Very well, if you wish it.
I not only wish, I insist. Here is 20 guineas in advance. Well, auf Wiedersehen, Mr. Hatherley.
Sounds fishy to me, Holmes? 50 guineas is a suspiciously large fee for a small job like that.
Quite, Watson, quite. Hydraulic presses, eh? Did this emaciated German colonel have a scar on his forehead?
Why, yes, now you mention it, I believe he did.
Ha, I thought so.
Then you know who he is, Holmes?
I can guess. But go on with your story, Mr. Hatherley. You reached Erfurt at 11:15?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. As I passed through the station gate, I found Colonel Stark waiting for me. Without a word, he hurried me into a carriage which was waiting for us both. We got in. He drew up the windows on both sides, tapped on the glass, and away we went as fast as the horse could go.
One horse or two?
Only one, Mr. Holmes.
Did you observe the color?
Yes, I saw it by the carriage lamps as I was getting it. It was a chestnut.
Tired looking or fresh?
Oh, fresh and glossy. Well, we drove for the better part of an hour. And from the rate at which we were going, I should say the distance we covered was nearly 12 and 7 miles.
Yes, interesting. What did the countryside look like?
It was a dark night, Mr. Holmes. I saw nothing. Moreover, the carriage windows were made of frosted glass.
Sounds funny to me, eh, Holmes?
The roads, were they smooth or bumpy?
Decidedly bumpy, Mr. Holmes. We lurched and jolted terribly. Moreover, we seemed to be going continually up and down hill. Well, finally, the bumpy road was exchanged for the crisp smoothness of a gravel drive. The carriage came to a standstill, and I got out.
Can you describe the front of the house?
Now, I'm afraid I can't, Mr. Holmes. I was whisked into the front door so fast I could see nothing. The instant I crossed the threshold, the door slammed behind us, and I heard the rattle of the wheels as the carriage drove away.
Minna!
Ja, ich komme.
Bring a lamp. Ah, that is better. It is not nice to keep our guests standing in the dark.
So, ist gekommen.
Gewiss. Take the lamp into my study. Now, Mr. Hatherley, if you will be so good, come with me. Minna, you can go now.
Ja, ich gehe.
My sister, Mr. Hatherley, a good girl. She does what she is told. And now, you will excuse me a few minutes, please. I come right back.
Of course.
Make yourself comfortable.
Gloomy-looking hole. Smells musty as though it hadn't been lived in for a long time. All the windows shuttered and barred. Confound that clock. Wish it wouldn't tick like that. It gives me the jumps. Hello,
It is only me. Please, do not call out. I must tell you something.
It's all right. Please don't look so frightened.
No, it is not all right. You must go. You must not stay here. There is no good for you to do.
Yes, but I came to inspect the machine. I can't leave before.
No, you must. You can do no good. The last man who came, Oh, it's too terrible.
Minna, where are you?
Quick, Gottes Willen, before it is too late. Quick, this way.
Minna!
Down this passage and out that door.
So dark.
Minna, who are you talking to?
Hurry, run.
So, you let him go, huh?
Please, you will not hurt him.
Won't hurt him. Wait till I get hold of him. Wait.
He's coming. Run!
Well, I got a glimpse of him coming after me with a cleaver, and I ran for dear life. But he ran too. I just managed to scale the garden wall before he got to it. Even so, I wasn't quite quick enough. That cleaver came down on my left hand before I could get away.
What a filthy blackguard.
I crawled over to some bushes as best I could and then promptly fainted.
Funny he didn't come after you and finish the job, eh, Holmes?
Well, the bushes hid me, I guess, but someone must have found me sooner or later. It must have been the girl, or perhaps she bribed the coachman to help me.
What makes you say that?
Well, when I came to, the sun was just rising. I was lying in an angle of a hedge along the high road, and just a little lower down was a long building. The Erfurt Station.
Well, I'm blessed.
Half dazed, I went to the station. The early morning train was just pulling in. I boarded it and returned to London. What I can't understand is why I should have been lured to that lonely spot, and what reason Colonel Stark can have had for making his murderous attack on me.
Yes, interesting little problem. We shall have to look into it. Oh, by the way, I have a newspaper clipping I think might interest you. Watson, hand me last year's index. That's a good fellow.
Righto. There you are.
Let me see. January, the Limehouse Plague, Lady Waterfield's Pearls, February, March. Ah, yes, here we are. Read this.
Lost on the 9th of May, Mr. Jeremiah Haling, age 26, hydraulic engineer. I say, that's a coincidence. Left lodgings at 10 o'clock at night. Has not been heard of since. Was dressed in grey tweeds, soft hat, black boots.
Yes, I suspect that represents the last time the Colonel's machinery needed overhauling.
Then that explains what the girl was trying to tell me.
Undoubtedly, your Colonel is a cool and desperate man, Mr. Hatherley. He lets nothing stand in the way of his little game. And, like some of our early pirates, he believes in leaving no survivors behind from a captured ship.
Good heavens. Oh, I have had a narrow escape.
Quite. He'd have killed you sooner or later in any event.
Well, Holmes, what are you going to do?
I think I shall run down and have a look at that machinery for myself.
But Holmes, that's just putting your head into the lion's mouth.
Yes, I only hope the lion hasn't run away.
Well, at least let me go along.
Well, you can come as far as Erford Station if you like. I may need reinforcements.
Then I'm coming too.
But your wound...
Oh, rubbish. I feel 100% improved. After all, this is my problem, and my curiosity, if nothing else, won't let me take a passive part in its solution.
Very well. Come along, both of you. We've barely time to catch the 10:45 train.
Well, here we are, Holmes. Erford Station. Now what?
First of all, we must find Colonel Stark's house.
I mentioned the name to the station agent in passing. Said he'd never heard of it before.
Yes, it's an assumed name, of course. The gentleman in question is famous for his aliases.
Well, then, how are we to find the house?
I brought an ordnance map of the surrounding country.
Of course. I drove 10 miles, at the most 12 in that carriage. All we have to do is draw a circle with a radius of 12 miles, and this station is its center, then visit all the places within that limit.
Yes, rather a tiresome job. I think I can lay my finger on it without all that bother.
Oh, you've formed your opinion. I bet I know it's in the south. The country's more deserted there.
No.
I'd say east. I seem to remember driving east.
Wrong again.
Then it was west. There are several quiet little villages over there.
No, it wasn't west.
Well, then I'm for the north. There are hills there. Mr. Hatherley said he drove up and down hills.
Well, you've completely boxed the compass between you. You're both wrong.
Hmm? That's impossible.
Not at all. This is my choice. It's here we shall find the house in the center of the circle. The starting point itself.
What about the 12-mile drive?
6 miles out and 6 miles back.
Then that drive was just a hoax.
And there, if I'm not mistaken, is the house. Almost across the road.
You're right, Mr. Holmes. I'm sure you are. What? That's the very same wall I vaulted last night. And there, further down the road, are the bushes I hid in.
I thought so. Well, I'll go over and have a chat with our friend, Colonel Stark. Mr. Hatherley, you and Watson stay here.
Why can't we go with you?
Impossible, my dear Watson. I don't want to frighten Colonel Stark off before I have a look at that machine of his.
Yes, but you're not a hydraulic engineer, Mr. Holmes. You wouldn't understand it. He'll suspect you immediately.
I have a fairly good knowledge of hydraulics. I think it'll see me through. However, if I'm not back inside of 15 minutes, you may come and get me. I may need assistance.
Most men are loyal customers of the friendly local store in their community, the store they can trust. Therefore, it's doubly pleasing that this fine independent store, the leading establishment in town, sells Clippercraft clothes. It's nice to get all the advantages of group buying at the store of your choice. And it's mighty easy on your pocketbook, too. The Clippercraft plan concentrates the buying power of 1,036 stores from coast to coast, bringing you beautifully tailored Clippercraft suits at only $40 and $45, top coats and overcoats at only $40, and sport jackets at only $26.50. Yes, selling expensive clothes at inexpensive low prices at the nation's finest independent stores is the great big idea behind the Clippercraft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
These leading stores in the metropolitan area are proud to add their names to Clippercraft in your suit, top coat, and overcoat. In Manhattan, Saks 34th, Broadway at 34th. John Wanamaker Men's Stores, Broadway at 8th and 67 Liberty Street. In Brooklyn, Abraham and Strauss. In Newark, New Jersey, Boulevard Men's Shop, Kresge, Newark. And in Jamaica, the B&B Clothes Shop, 16408 Jamaica Avenue.
And now, back to Sherlock Holmes. We find him at the door of the mysterious Colonel Stark.
Confound it, you don't suppose he's made his getaway.
Who are you? What do you want?
Oh, how do you do? Colonel Stark, I presume? I've come to repair your hydraulic press.
How dare you?
Well, you see, a friend of mine, Mr. Hatherley, told me of his experience here last night. I said I thought he was a fool to run away like that you must have mistaken him for someone else last night when you chased him in the dark.
Yes, that is so. A suitor of my sister, a good-for-nothing scoundrel. It was all a mistake.
Just as I suspected. And when Mr. Hatherley said he wouldn't come back, and when I learned what a fine fee you'd promised him, I thought, why not come and have a look for myself?
Of course, why not? You too are a hydraulic engineer?
Naturally.
Very well. You may come in.
Ah, trunks and boxes in the front hall. We're about to leave this neighborhood?
Yeah, the English climate. It is bad for my sister's health. We go to the south of France.
I wonder if I might see your sister.
So sorry. She is in her room. She is not well.
Oh, just for a moment. Hatherley seemed to be worried about her, said he thought you might have mistreated her last night after he got away.
Ridiculous.
Of course, but if I could just see her, I could reassure him. He, seemed to want to call in the police.
The foolish young man. But come, I'll let you see her. This way. She shall tell you herself that she is all right.
That's very good of you, I'm sure. I wouldn't dream of troubling you myself, but you see, young Hatherley is...
This is her room. Minna? Minna?
Yes?
See, Minna, I bring a gentleman who is anxious to know if you are all right. Tell him how you feel, huh, Minna?
I'm well, thank you.
I'm delighted to hear it. You see, my friend Mr. Hatherley was worried about you.
Mr. Hatherley?
The young gentleman I mistook for someone else last night.
Oh, is he? He's all right.
Why, yes, of course.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Hold on a minute. Look here, those bruises on your neck and arms. Has anyone been treating you badly?
That was from falling downstairs. Minna?
Yes.
I see. Well, Colonel Stark, suppose we take a look at your hydraulic press.
Certainly. Of course. This way, please.
Goodbye, Fräulein Stark. I hope you'll enjoy the south of France.
The south of France?
Yes. Lovely climate. Well, goodbye.
This way. The press is on this floor. Here we are.
Gigantic affair, Colonel.
Yes, it is capable of exerting enormous pressure. The sides are all of iron.
Yes, very impressive.
I pull the lever so. The water flows into the cylinders, you hear? But there's a leakage somewhere.
Yes, loss of power. Yes, that third driving rod, the rubber banding around the top, seems to have shrunk. It doesn't quite fill the socket.
Of course, how stupid of me not to notice for myself.
Yes, it would have saved you a lot of trouble, wouldn't it? You can stop the machine now. Let's have a look at the inside.
Very well, if you wish. You can enter here.
Very impressive. Like a prison. Hello, what's this on the floor? Metallic deposit. Wasn't it Fuller's Earth you're supposed to be mining?
Yes, I thought you might see that.
Goodbye, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Great thunder, he's locked me in. Started the machine. The ceiling's coming down on me. Well, Sherlock Holmes, you let yourself in for something this time. Closer. Closer, you wouldn't think it could move so fast. In a few minutes, it'll grind me to a helpless pulp. Better not think about it. I can reach it now. Down. Down. No good trying to push it back. I've found it. I can't stand up any longer. Well then, sit down, Sherlock. Lower. Lower. If I lie on my face, the weight will crack my spine. No, the other way will be less painful.
Please, mister.
Minna, where did you come from?
Here, near the floor. A panel, it's open.
By Jove, another outlet.
Hurry, hurry, do not talk so much. You can get out?
The opening's pretty small.
Quick, quick.
Yes, I can just squeeze through. There.
God save Dank, you are safe.
Pretty close shave. Hear that? The presser has just hit the floor. Another minute in there, and I'd have been ground to a pulp.
So Minna was the good angel a second time, Doctor.
Yes, a great girl, that Minna. Hatherley took quite a fancy to her. In fact, she eventually became Mrs. Hatherley.
Oh, and her brother?
Oh, Hatherley and I caught him on his way out as he was making his getaway. He's still in prison, serving a life sentence for attempted murder and counterfeiting.
What a ghastly story, Doctor. So that was what the hydraulic press was used for, counterfeiting.
Yes, of course, Holmes suspected it from the first.
Naturally. And now, Dr. Watson, would you like to give us a hint about next week's adventure?
Next week, I think I shall explain why the ancient statue of Charles I, which stands in Charing Cross, holds a modern sword. I may even tell you how the original sword threatened the life of one of the premier dukes of England.
The makers of Clippercraft clothes and 1,036 leading stores from coast to coast have brought you another in the new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is produced and directed by Basil Lochran, with special music by Albert Berman. If you don't know your Clippercraft dealer, write Clippercraft, 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Give your child a run for your money. Join the March of Dimes. Send your dimes and dollars to your local March of Dimes headquarters. Keep your kids in the running. Join the March of Dimes. Be sure to listen next week to Sherlock Holmes in the case of the Avenging Blade. If you'd like to attend the Sherlock Holmes broadcasts in New York, see your local Clippercraft dealer, and he'll tell you how to obtain your tickets. This is Cy Harris speaking for Clippercraft Clothes. This is the world's largest network serving more than 450 radio stations, the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, I haven't quite gotten to reading this story, but it does seem like they did a slightly modified version of this entirely different name for one of the episodes in the 1954-55 TV season of Sherlock Holmes. I think we definitely need to play some more of those. And hopefully we'll get into some of these in some of the later video theater episodes we do. Just one comment off of Podcast Alley. A nice keep up the good work, Adam. Well, thank you so much for your comment, and that'll actually do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And then join us back on Thursday for another exciting adventure with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. This episode of the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio is brought to you by the support of our listeners. I want to especially say thank you to Robert for a very nice donation. He writes in, I've been listening to your podcast for almost a year now. Great job. Well, thank you so much, Robert. And as we do with all donations of $7 or more, we'll be sending along access to our premium site. Well, there was one episode between last week's show and this one. It was actually John Lund's version of the Bertie Baskerville matter, which we heard earlier last year from Edmund O'Brien. This episode is actually the first Johnny Dollar episode that we play that was a Armed Forces Radio Services rebroadcast. There is also a network version of this episode, and for the most part, the sound quality on the Armed Forces Radio Services version is just light years better. However, we're going to play the first about 45 seconds of the network version so that you can hear the interaction at the beginning between Johnny Dollar and the insurance company man. For whatever reason, the AFRS version did not include that interaction. There was also a sponsor announcement at the start of that show, which they cut, and I don't know, maybe they got a little too eager. But here now is the King's Necklace matter.
Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum, the refreshing, delicious treat that gives you chewing enjoyment, presents for your listening enjoyment, John Lund as Johnny Dollar.
Was with his premium paid even as you and I, but he sold his soul for a pot of gold, for rubies and diamonds, precious and old, even as you and I.
Marty, thank you.
Hi, Johnny.
Why don't you hit the sack, Marty? You'll feel better in the morning.
I'll feel better when I see you, Johnny. Plane leaves with party at 7:15 a.m. I'll meet you here in Miami when you get in.
Good night, Marty.
There's a king involved, Johnny. Not to mention $250,000 in lovely stone. Gentle sea breezes walk the palms of Los Banos. And an old friend needs help.
You?
Me.
I'll be there. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Eastern Indemnity and Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the King's Necklace matter. Expense account item 1, $134.70. Airfare and incidentals between Hartford and Miami. Waiting at the airport, as promised, was your Southern States Agency manager, Marty Fenton. Over a cup of brew in the coffee shop, he briefed me on the assignment.
Ever hear of King Rawlings, Johnny?
King Rawlings? Financial tycoon, wasn't he? Retired some 15, 20 years ago?
That's the lad. About a year ago, he wrote a policy on a $250,000 necklace that he owns.
Which has suddenly turned up among the missing?
Not yet.
You expect it to?
Well, we got a letter from him day before yesterday. Claims somebody attempted to break into his safe. Thinks they were after the necklace.
Well, I'm usually sent for after the crime's been committed.
True, my lad, true. Oh, pass the sugar, will you, please?
Sure. So what am I doing here now?
The policy's coming up for renewal, Johnny. And there have been nasty rumors circulating around about Rawlings' present financial condition.
Afraid he's starting a build-up to put in a fraudulent claim?
Been done before. The boys in Hartford get pretty stuffy about that kind of skullduggery. Now, we want you to check around Los Banos and see what you come up with.
Is that where the gentle sea breezes waft through the palm trees?
2,000 imported ones. Los Banos is Rawlings' own personal island off the coast of Cuba. He's lived there for 20 years, surrounded by his memories, his trees, and his collection.
Of precious stones?
People.
Mr. Johnny Dollar is one of the...
Oh, your plane's waiting, Johnny. I hired a little amphib to fly
Let's
you
not
down.
brush off the collection of people, Marty.
Who am I to prejudice a stalwart investigator about to brave the dangers of Rawlings Isle? On your way, lad. And may the blessings of Eastern Indemnity follow you even unto the ends of Los Banos.
After 1.5 hours of white clouds and blue sky, the plane put down in an even bluer sea and taxied over to a landing dock on a picture book island. King Rawlings had collected palm trees, all right, but I didn't know about the people. From where I stood, there was nothing to be seen but the landing dock, a gravel path, and those trees. The path led through a seemingly deserted tangle of exotic flowers, sweet-scented vines, and the ever-present palm trees. It was like a tropical paradise, peaceful, serene, untouched by men. I just about decided that nobody on this island ever made use of this lush garden spot when I learned that I couldn't have been more wrong.
Over here, please.
Well, hello, wherever you are.
Over here, in the clearing to your right. Hello. Who are you?
My name's Johnny Dollar.
I am Nita Valdez, Mr. Dollar.
I'm glad to know you, Miss Valdez.
You are the man who arrived on the plane a few minutes ago, no?
I didn't think anyone had heard. The hospitality is overwhelming.
You will become accustomed to it. Everyone here is too occupied with himself to bother concerning anyone else. Like me, I have been too busy sunbathing.
Yes, so I noticed.
If it bothers you, you could hand me my robe.
Oh, no, that won't be necessary.
Sit down, Mr. Dollar.
Thanks.
You have come to see the king about the attempt to steal his necklace?
Apparently, sunbathing hasn't interfered with your learning about that.
You obviously do not know King Rawlings very well.
Why do you say that?
Everyone on this island has been accused of attempting the theft.
Including you?
Why should I be an exception?
Oh, just wondering.
Because I'm young and beautiful, you think perhaps I hold some special place of esteem in King Rawlings' affections?
Well, do you?
Can you reach that bottle of suntan lotion?
Yeah, sure.
The back of my shoulders. Would you mind? It is a difficult place for me to reach.
Oh, I'll be glad to.
About the necklace, Mr. Dollar,
I would not be too concerned about it if I were you.
Oh? Why not?
Well, if anyone had actually made an attempt to steal it, the king knows who he is.
But he still accused everybody here, huh?
It affords him a great deal of pleasure to make others squirm and be uncomfortable.
You don't like him very much, do you?
I hate him.
Then why do you stay here?
Same reason as everyone else. Money. Oh, that will do nicely, thank you.
You're welcome. Do you mind explaining that bit about money, Miss Valdez?
Later, perhaps. The sun is still warm, and I wish to take advantage of it. We will meet again.
A polite dismissal, if I ever heard one.
You're wondering, perhaps, why I stopped you to talk this way?
The thought had occurred to me, yes.
When you meet the king, get to know him a little, I think you will understand why.
And if I don't?
I sunbathe here every day at this time.
I'll think about that, too. I found that Rawlings, like all good kings, lived in a castle. This one, obviously imported, stone by stone, from some Moorish province. A nervous little man came to the main gate and escorted me inside to the baronial hall.
Harley is my name, Mr. Dollar. Timothy B. Harley. I'm Mr. Rawlings' secretary. In here, please. Mr. Rawlings, steady. He'll be down to join you shortly.
Thanks, Mr. Harley.
I presume you're here about the necklace, Mr. Dollar?
A favorite topic of conversation around here, isn't it?
I beg your pardon?
The necklace.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, under the circumstances, you see, the attempted theft and all, it, has someone else mentioned it to you?
Any reason why they shouldn't?
Oh, no, not at all. No, it was just that, well, was it Nita Valdez by any chance?
What makes you think so?
Oh, nothing. Oh, no, nothing at all. Only, you see, it was, to tell you the truth, I've suspected something for a long time. It's come to my attention.
You talk too much, Harley.
Oh, Mr. Rawlings. Oh, I didn't hear you come in. I was just telling
Get out.
Gentleman. Oh, well, of course, Mr. Rawlings. Of course.
You're from the insurance company?
That's right, Johnny Dollar.
Why you instead of Marty Fenton?
He's an agent. I'm a special investigator.
I didn't request an investigation.
You made a report of an attempted robbery.
What do you want me to do? Have you declare the policy void because I didn't?
What do you want us to do? Thank you for letting us pay out $250,000 if the necklace turns up missing?
Over here, darling. There's the safe I keep it in.
Pretty substantial job.
Fenton supervised the installation himself.
Those scratches near the combination, those what made you think somebody tried to force it?
Only a hammer and chisel could make those marks.
I'd like to see the necklace.
Good.
Who do you think was after it?
Either Harley or my protege, Nita Valdez.
Why suspect them?
They love money and hate me.
You care to go into that?
You're investigating the necklace, Dollar, not my relationships with the people on this island. There it is.
Beautiful workmanship.
What else did you expect for $250,000?
A little more than this, Rawlings. I'm no expert on precious stones, but 10 will get you 20 if these aren't paste.
Let me see. You're right, they are.
Any explanations?
None.
You've no idea how the switch was pulled?
I have not.
When was the last time the necklace was appraised?
When the policy was written?
Who else has the combination of this safe?
No one.
Kind of puts you in a spot, doesn't it?
Not at all. I'm insured.
The law says we don't have to pay off on fraudulent claims.
I know. The law also says you have to prove that fraud exists.
I broke the news to Marty and looked around for something to improve the shining hours while waiting for him to arrive. I found it, dressed in a clinging silk gown on a patio overlooking the sea. It was obviously the cocktail hour. Mind if I join you?
Oh, please do.
I can't make up my mind.
To what, Mr. Donner?
Which shows you off to greater advantage? That dress or the sunsuit?
For that, you may have a choice of rewards. Scotch or martini?
Nothing, thanks.
Well, what did you think of him?
The king?
Yes.
I'm more interested in what you think of him.
I have already told you.
I know. He confirmed your statement.
That I hate him?
Mm-hmm.
You can believe it.
I do. What I want to know is why.
King Rawlings is a collector.
Stamps, butterflies, out-of-state license
of
plates?
People, Mr. Dollar.
How does this fascinating game of his work?
He specializes in aspiring artists with little or no talent. Actress like myself, a would-be poet like Harley. He baits his trap with a promise of money to aid their careers, keeps them dangling as long as they can amuse him and feed his ego, then he casts them off.
Very amusing.
Yes, isn't it?
But if you know what he is, why stay on?
Oh, it's much easier to cling even to a remnant of a dream than to face the harshness of reality.
How tough would it be to face reality with $250,000?
The necklace is gone?
Does that surprise you?
No. It was too great a temptation.
For you or Harley?
For either of us, if we had known the combination to that safe. No, Mr. Dollar, it was the king himself who was tempted.
Well, that doesn't figure. Not with his money.
If he still has it.
Why do you think he hasn't?
What other answer could there be?
Might be interesting to try to find out.
Oh, you would be wasting your time, Mr. Dollar.
I've got some to spare.
Perhaps I could find use for it.
I don't have any money.
Oh, that was rather cruel.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Dollar, is that you out? Oh, yes, of course it is, yes.
Why the excitement, Harley?
Tell me, is it true that the necklace has been stolen?
Looks like it. Why?
I wonder if that could possibly account for it.
For what?
Mr. Rawlings. He's lying on the second floor landing. I think he's dead.
Timothy B. Harley couldn't have been more right. King Rawlings was lying stone cold dead on the second floor landing. When Marty Fenton flew in 3 hours later, accompanied by a Captain Fuentes of the Havana Police, I gave them a fast briefing. Marty's reaction was predictable.
Nobody gets off this island until we learn what's happened to that necklace. Right, Captain Fuentes?
Yes, I agree, Senor Fenton. Up to a certain point.
What point? What do you mean?
The good captain apparently feels there might be something more important about all this than a missing necklace.
What could be more important than $250,000 in stolen jewels?
How about murder?
Never entered my mind.
Naturally not. Eastern Indemnity only insured Rawlings' stones, not his life.
I guess I had that coming.
Senor Dollar is quite correct, however. The cause of Senor Rawlings' death is not apparent at the moment. It will require an autopsy to determine.
And if it's murder?
We must then regard everyone who was present upon this island with suspicion. What help can you give us regarding that, Senor Dollar?
Well, just what I've told you. Outside of the servants, only Harley, Miss Valdez, and I were among those present.
And who was the last to see Senor Rawlings alive?
So far as I know, I was. But Harley could have been with him after Rawlings left me in the study. For that matter, Miss Valdez could have seen him, too, before our little tete-a-tete on the patio.
Look, fellows, me lads, I don't want to appear single-minded about this little affair, but we don't know whether Rawlings was murdered or not. However, we do know Eastern Indemnity's out a cool 250 G's if that necklace doesn't turn up.
Payable, of course, to Senor Rawlings' estate.
Sure, but who cares who it's payable to? What I'm interested in is not paying it.
Thinking of possible motives, Captain?
The heir to Senor Rawlings' fortune might well be suspect.
So would whoever stole the necklace. If Rawlings had tumbled to him.
And there's always plain hate, isn't there?
You have something specific in mind, Senor Dollar?
Just a suggestion, Captain. Fuentes had his plane fly Rawlings' body back to Havana for posting, while he conducted a very thorough, if unenlightening, questioning of those present. Apparently, no one had seen Rawlings after he left me in the study, had any idea how he died, or what had happened to that necklace. Fuentes knocked off around midnight, and everyone ostensibly went to bed. I still had a few unanswered questions kicking around, so I went up to Harley's room to try them out.
Why, yes, Mr. Dollar. Mr. Rawlings had a will, but as I told Captain Fuentes, it's locked in the safe.
And it'll take a court order and some professional safecrackers to get at it, I know. But what about the copy?
Copy?
It's customary for the attorney who drew it up to retain a copy.
Oh, yes, of course. I hadn't thought. Senor Chavez must have one. In Havana.
He's an attorney there?
Yes. As a matter of fact, he handled most of Mr. Rawlings' financial affairs. Well, he must have a copy. Oh, why don't you ask him?
Oh, I will. But first, I'd like to know why you were planning to leave Los Baños.
Leave? Well, how did you know?
Well, maybe you can think of another reason for having a half-filled suitcase laying there on your bed.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. I was planning to leave. No reason why I shouldn't. After all, my employment here has been terminated.
Have you discussed the idea with Captain Fuentes?
Well, no, but why should he object? I'm not guilty of anything.
Just a thought, Harley. Mind if I take a look at that suitcase?
No, don't touch that. I don't.
Well, what do you know? A brown paper parcel neatly wrapped and tied. You mind telling me what's in it?
It's none of your business. Put that down.
It wouldn't be a necklace by any chance, would it?
Put it down, Dollar.
Oh, sure, right away. Well, now that's interesting. All new, crisp, in $100 denominations. Must be close to $10,000 here.
Well, what of it? It's mine.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I'm just wondering where you got it.
I saved it.
Working for Rawlings?
Yes, why not? I saved it working for Rawlings. It's mine.
Okay, Harley. I don't want it. Don't you really know why Captain Fuentes might object to your leaving now?
No. I most certainly don't.
Remarkable. There wasn't anything I could do before morning rolled around except smoke a last cigarette and try to think things out. So I went out in the same patio where Nita and I had had our talk and lit up. The one cigarette turned into two. Then I started to light a third one. That was a mistake. I saw the muzzle flash. It came from somewhere inside a clump of palm trees. But with a full moon behind me, I wasn't going to get heroic about it. I made a dive for a concrete retaining wall. I didn't think the shots I'd snapped out had done any good, and I had no intention of finding out, not with that moon lighting things up. So I made myself comfortable with my back to the wall and waited for the Cuban Marines in the person of Captain Fuentes to come charging to the rescue. Some 15 minutes later, Marty, the captain, and I held a council of war on our way down to the landing docks.
I found these two empty shells under one of the palm trees, Senor Dollar. But that was all. No trace of the person who fired them.
What about Harley?
He's not in his room. So far, I've been unable to locate him.
Hardly seems reasonable, Johnny. What could be so important about that money you saw to make him want to kill you?
I don't know that he did, Marty. But I'd like to ask him a couple of questions about it.
But why come down here to the boathouse, senor?
Well, with your plane gone, there's only one way off this island. Rawlings speedboats. We'd better make sure they're locked up tight.
One of the slips is empty.
It wasn't when I got here.
We heard no motor, senor.
Well, that's nothing that a paddle and a pair of willing arms can't explain.
Harley?
That's my guess.
Then it's 10-1 he has the necklace with him.
Expense account item 2, $5.65. Breakfast for two in Havana. where Martin Fenton and I found the bougainvillea and the tourist rates in full bloom. We wanted to talk to Senor Chavez, Rawlings' lawyer, and after a rough trip on one of the speedboats and that rougher breakfast tab, we made our way to his office.
See, I have a copy of Senor Rawlings' will, but you understand I cannot disclose its contents until the court so order.
Well, we don't want any details, Senor Chavez.
Huh? But I understood you were inquiring about beneficiaries.
All we want to know is if he left anything to a Timothy Harley or Anita Valdez.
I see.
Well, we've explained the circumstances, Senor Chavez. It can't violate any professional ethics to give us a yes or no to those two names.
No, I do not believe it is unethical to tell you this much. No individuals were named in the will, only charitable and public welfare institutions.
Well, that eliminates the heir apparent angle, Johnny.
One more thing, Senor Chavez. There have been rumors that Rawlings' fortune was almost gone. Any truth to them?
Not a bit. All his investments were most judiciously placed. He was perhaps wealthier at the time of his death than at any time during his life.
Well, you've been a big help. Thanks.
For now, it is an attorney's duty to aid the law, is it not? Any time you are here in Havana, please to stop in. It would be my pleasure.
Will do, Senor Chavez, and thanks again. Well, it was a great help.
Cleaned up some loose ends.
It's a loose necklace I'm worried about, Johnny. Where do we go from here?
Well, we can check out the local police, see if they've picked up anything on Harley.
Good as anything, I guess. Oh, which way?
We passed it on the way up here. We'll go right...
Senor Dollar, it is most fortunate that you're still here. There's a phone call for you in my office from the island of Los Baños.
Oh, thanks, Senor Chavez.
There on my desk, senor.
Johnny Dollar.
This is Captain Puente, Senor Dollar. I have some information for you.
Oh? What is it, Captain?
First of all, the autopsy report on Senor Rawlings has come in.
Natural death?
See, that is correct. From an old aggravated heart condition. But how did you know?
No real reason for anybody to murder him. What else?
We have found Senor Harley's body at the north end of the island. Apparently his motor stopped and the surf dashed him against the rocks. His skull was fractured.
You didn't find the necklace on him?
No, but he's the one who stole it.
What makes you think so?
In his wallet, we found a slip of paper, senor. On it was written the combination of the safe.
Expense account item 3. $35. Transportation of speedboat back to Los Baños. With Captain Fuente's report, there was no need to report directly to the island, and Marty was anxious to get back to the office and bring you up to date. So he chartered a plane, and we took off for Miami.
Well, Johnny, my lad, we chalk up another happy collaboration, huh?
Yeah, you might call it that, Marty.
A king there was. You know, somehow I don't think Rawlings was a very happy man with all his dough. Holed up on that island, nothing but hate around him.
Well, money's not the answer to everything.
No, but as the saying goes, it sure helps. But then I guess it didn't help Harley much either. I wonder if we'll ever find that necklace.
It'll turn up.
Pretty optimistic, aren't you?
No, I'm sure of it.
Well, come on, Johnny, give. Where do you think it is?
Right there in your briefcase.
It's not a very funny gag, Johnny.
No, Marty. It's not.
And how about changing the snapper?
I wish I could, Marty. But it figured all along. Looking for every possible loophole, I guess. But they all closed up on me.
Where did I slip?
Where they all slip. At the very beginning. When you first thought of it.
What tipped you?
Rawlings swore that only he knew the combination of that safe. He was wrong. One other man knew it. The one who supervised its installation.
You should have known you'd tumble to that.
The paste pinned it down even closer, Marty. The reproduction was too good. No wonder. You had every descriptive detail in your copy of the policy. Weights, dimensions, photographs, everything.
I didn't go back to the island, Johnny. How could I make the switch?
That's where Harley came in. You slipped him the combination, and he made the switch. That's why the $10,000 payoff, and why you had to kill him and frame it as an accident.
Maybe I should have killed you, too, when I had the chance on the patio.
You've still got your gun?
Nah. What's the use? It was wrong all the way. Besides, I never could outshoot you.
Expense account item 4, $32.15. Hotel bill and incidentals in Miami. Item 5, $141.10. Plane fare and incidentals back to Hartford. Expense account total, $348.60. Remarks: with all due deference to my chosen profession, sometimes this is a lousy business. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and was written by Sidney Marshall with music by Milton Charles. Featured in tonight's cast were Jack Moyles, Lillian Bayef, Tom Tully, Howard McNear, Nestor Paiva, and Don Diamond. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Charles Lyon, inviting you to join us again next week at this same time when, from Hollywood, John Lund returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Welcome back. And I did not figure this out till the last minute or so of the program. I figured out a little bit before Johnny revealed it, because I basically just went through my head and said, okay, well, who do we have left as a potential suspect? And even though we would not traditionally think of the insurance agent as suspect, it goes back to Holmes' advice. Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. The sound quality, I think that listeners heard that 45-second intro, and then the AFRS version will agree we made the right choice with the version we chose to play. And Armed Forces Radio Services, it's going to be crucial in Johnny Dollar's history. There are hundreds of episodes out there that we would not have if it were not for the preservation of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Well, we turn now to listener comments and feedback, and here are a couple from Podcast Alley. Keep up the good work, Adam. And this one, in praise of the app. This is the best app on my iPhone. I plug in my earphones and sleep with it every night. I love, love, love it. Thanks so much, Terry. Glad you're listening out there. And, of course, have a pleasant night's sleep. Well, that will actually do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. But you can join us on Monday for Barrie Craig Confidential Investigator. In the meanwhile, send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives and give us a call, 208-991-4783. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.